Well, since Brenda can hear us at a distance, somebody want to start the session today by giving us a recap?
Previously
so that we might begin
on...
starting. Why are my
Well, screw us, I guess. We went through an entire sequence of being dropped into the abyss that appeared to have been drilled out, followed down tunnels with similar drilling marks that opened up into caves that had boxes in each of them. A pedestal was found that was activated and showed a map of the level we were on, which was apparently one level of a multi-level structure. And we made our way back to our objective. And on the way to the objective, we saw some interesting items. Our cleric Healy McHeel grabbed an item and it was taken from her, it appeared. And then we got to the objective we had, and as soon as we had it in our grasp, we woke up at a table, or at least opened our eyes. Did we wake up? We don't know, because we don't know how we're starting, but during the whole incident, we slowly were regaining our memories, and now we're sitting at a banquet table. Dun dun dun. Anything else anyone needs to add? Any important bits or pieces I left out or missed?
Crazy shit happened, and we woke up in a bar.
Scary monster chasing us in the vault.
Oh yeah, the terrifying monster in the vault. Yeah, that was scary. That sucked.
And a weird cloud of electricity.
Yeah. Dead dragon, beast, monster, whatever. I don't know if it was ever declared a dragon, it was just dragon size.
Oh, and we've been there before.
Whatever that was, Brenna, it didn't come through.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'd been there before.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Members of being there before.
Alright. Any other details that anybody wants to add before we get into today? No?
That dragon boy doesn't listen to not touching magical items before figuring out what they do.
Bro,
Fair enough.
need to cast Identify.
He's just like, yeah, that's me.
Okay, so, having had this ordeal that you guys just explained, you find yourself sitting at a dining table inside of what appears to be a communal dining hall. The room that you're in is probably 50 by 50, solid square. It's fairly large with a high ceiling that clearly goes up a floor or two, as there are windows from inside this structure looking into the dining hall area, and a communal kitchen that has like a think cafeteria style serving area underneath those windows. You find yourself sitting at this table, and the other tables are sporadically filled around the hall with various people in monastic robes. Think more like monks from medieval Europe than China. And that's kind of the setting you're in, as all of you kind of come to find that you're in the middle of eating. Various soups and breads are in front of you, and you've clearly been sitting here for a bit, but the food is still warm, and you're here, whereas you know you were just somewhere else.
It's us. Okay. I look around. How is everyone seated?
Currently, it's a round table, so you're all sitting next to each other in a circle.
Okay.
The exact seating
So
arrangement.
we have everybody here. We're all together. The backstory has all happened. Now we're just trying to move forward.
Yes, so your backstory has
yeah,
happened. You were all there.
A while ago.
You're all in
Yeah.
this place.
We all have full recollection of who everybody is, and
Yeah, so you know each other. At the moment, you're dealing with a slight moment of confusion and dysphoria, as a second ago you weren't here, now you are. But as you think about it for a moment, you do remember that this is the monastery you've been staying at for several weeks now. You've been helping out in the local area, dealing with some wolf problems, and that this is just another place along your travel that you guys have been doing over the last several months, if not years, since the carnival incidents. You were here this morning, you went out and were tracking wolves, didn't find anything today, and it's now the evening meal. That's kind of where you are.
Okay, I just want to check. That wasn't just me, right? What the heck was that?
I don't
Did
know. I
anyone
was
else
hoping-
just
I was
go
hoping
through an
you would know.
entire dungeon? Like, we
yeah,
didn't.
scary things,
but we
all the
did.
things. Did some weird stuff that happened.
Can I look at my shoes and see if there's like remnants on the bottom of my shoes?
Yeah, no, you look down at your shoes, and they've got the muck from having been trekking around out in the woods outside from the day, but nothing that you would screams the location you were in that you remember being in a moment ago.
I just, like, feel at my face to see if the mask is there.
No mask.
Well, so we're there helping them out. That's why we were at the monastery.
Yeah,
Do we have an overarching goal that we were there for?
you guys seem to be a traveling band of mercenaries, basically. You were there helping them with a wolf population problem. The wolf population had grown exponentially over the last couple of years in this area. And being who you are, a few of you were skilled enough to be able to track down and help cut the wolf population down. That's why you're there. You've been there for probably about a month. It is currently getting to be late spring, early summer.
Is it morning or evening right now?
Evening.
Okay.
About how much time has passed since we came in from and sat down?
Since you sat down for the meal?
Oh.
As best you can tell, you've only been here for a few minutes. Like, as you look around and kind of try to piece together, you're pretty sure you sat down about a minute ago and started eating. There's a few bites taken out of your food, but not enough to state that you've been there for a while, and your food's still pretty hot.
I'd, like, cautiously take another bite.
It's soup. It's a vegetable soup with a little bit of meat in it. It's quite good.
Ziara, didn't you say something about we've been there before?
Yep. Yep. Don't know why.
Do you remember now? I
Any-
can't go read again.
Any better idea on how or why we were there? Or are you still foggy on all that?
I could try to remember more.
Yeah.
Roll an intelligence check. History, if you were proficient in it. Otherwise, just an intelligence roll.
Not proficient in history. Natural 1.
Can I roll an insight check on the monks to see if they have any sketchy intentions or potentially are acting like they knew what was going on and that we went places?
Let's resolve the other check before you start rolling sus checks. This is not Among Us.
Okay.
So Brenna, your character, remind me her name again. I can't remember.
Ziara.
Ciara?
Ziara. Z-I-A-R-A.
Okay, Ziara. Sorry. I'm gonna get you guys' character names down eventually. Ziara. She thinks about it for a second, and her head just starts hurting. You know the beginning of the migraine feeling where you get the tightness in the back of your neck, as you're trying to think about it, you're like, you know something's there. But it's like, it's buried back there. And so your head just starts to hurt, so you just stops thinking about it for a minute. Stops pursuing that line of thought for right now.
No. Ow. No. Nothing. Can't. No. Mm-mm. Sorry. Nada. Ask me later. Try again later.
Try again later.
Nada. Sorry.
Alright. You don't even need to roll a sus check, per se, Shayla. Like,
Yay.
as you... Why did you two switch positions?
What
What the world?
I don't know.
Chairs, come on.
Okay. As you're looking around, like, none of the monks, none of the people in the hall seem to really be paying attention to you guys. Like, no one's really looking around. People are at their tables talking. There's some people in the line getting food, and there's the servers serving food. But nobody really seems to be paying particular attention to you guys.
Okay. Interesting.
How much do we know about the monastery in the town we're in the town period?
So the monastery that you're in is up on top of a small hill. You're in, like, the low hill country below the mountain range. And the monastery sits on a small hill above a small town. This is a... why? Why is Discord doing this? Okay.
We're playing musical chairs.
Apparently. So, as you're there, like, this is a trade route. Like, the road near this town is a trade road that goes up through the mountains into the mountain valleys above and eventually to the far side of the coast. Where you're at right now is just a small town. It's not even a stop along the way for most traders. It's just a... kind of just a last stop before you get to the mountain valleys. But most traders would just go from the last major town to the next major town and not stop here. So, the only really outstanding feature is this monastery that's been here for centuries. It's rumored that it used to be an old fort, that the religious order that works here just eventually took over and converted into a monastery when it was no longer needed as a fort on a war front. So,
What religious group?
this is notes. Pulling up notes. One moment. I have notes. Notes are good.
You know, it doesn't even look yellow. A minute ago it was normal. Now we're just mildly black and white again.
And now I can't find the thing that I wanted in my notes. There is an answer to your question. And I am finding the answer to your question. Ah, there you are.
So, would we as a group know of any sort of unrest in the area? Like, things that us mercenaries can problem solve in some fist-banging way?
Fisticuffs? Yes. To answer Colton's question first really quick, Helm is the order, the god of Helm. They worship the god Helm, and that's who runs the monastery. So, sorry, took me a second there.
No problem.
To answer your question, John, this is like the most pressing need that you guys had was the wolf situation in these lower foothills that the villagers were dealing with. but you've more or less resolved them at this point. The next most pressing need is you guys have been hearing that there might be some bandit activity of some kind going on in the valleys. Oh, wow. In the mountain valleys up above. So that's kind of the most pressing issue, though you have heard of some like civil unrest in back in Waterdeep and in a couple of the other major cities that something's going on back on the coast. But that's obviously over the mountains from where you guys are right now. So yeah.
So
Okay, so
basically,
there's
we need a
bandits in
new
the area.
job.
Say that again, Shayla? What?
So we basically need another job.
You probably could milk this one for another week or two, but you're kind of at the point where you could move on if you wanted to.
All right, when you say it's evening, is it like the sun is going down evening, or everyone's kind of chilling in the marketplace evening?
It's more of the chilling in the marketplace evening. That's why you guys are back at the monastery having a meal.
Okay.
If you wanted to go down the hill to the town, you could go down the hill into the town and mingle with them.
All right, I'd like to do that and see if there's any other things that I can pick up around the area or places we can find. So we can milk this, but we don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone want to come with me? I reach out. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go down to the marketplace. You want to come? Anyone?
I'll come.
I'll come.
Sure, group activity. Hooray.
All right, awesome. Finish up eating and then head down to marketplace in town.
Okay. So while you guys are eating, the high priest or the father who runs the monastery comes over to check on you guys. He's the man who you've been working for essentially for the last little while. His name's Father Malkehi. And he approaches you. He's a slightly older gentleman, maybe in his 50s. Slightly grayed, looks a little careworn, but he's got a rather large smile when he comes up to you guys at the table as you're finishing your meal and goes, "Oh, how's everyone doing tonight? I saw that you were out today and brought in a few wolves. How's everything going? How are you feeling? Any healing that you need? Anything on your minds that might be troubling you?" And this is pretty normal behavior for him, so this is not out of character.
Yeah, rumors of cursed areas in the woods.
Cursed areas in the woods? He thinks about it for a minute. While he's thinking about it, he motions to a chair at the table and asks, "Might I sit while I ponder this question?" Pulls a chair up, sits down, and like he had his hands like in his robes, and then while he's thinking, he pulls his hands out of his robes and starts gnawing on a piece of bread. Like he's puzzling over this for a second, but he's got like a like one of those round loaves of bread in his hand, and he's just kind of chewing on it.
He's a stress eater.
Yeah. So he's thinking about it for a second. And he pulls the bread out, and he's like, I don't know of any that are within the immediate area, unless something new has happened that I'm unaware of. But there is a cursed, he uses air quotes, location. It's in one of the valleys not too far up the mountain from here. They have this old legend about there was once a castle there that was destroyed, and that some specters haunt the place, and that is desecrated ground. No one's really been there in ages as far as I'm aware. There's just a small village not too far from it, past the trade road. That's the only place I can think of that would define as being cursed.
Okay.
Anything that could make a whole group of people kind of hallucinate in a way, but all having the same hallucination, but also still being able to like
Hmm.
losing your memory during said hallucination, but then coming back at the same time and like no time has passed whatsoever?
I know there are a few incredibly high-powered spells that could produce an effect of that nature. I know of stories of some sort of a divine intervention, whether it be for good or bad, that can do things like that. Hmm.
I
As-
turn to Tiara as he's talking.
As far as cursed ground being able to do that, unless you somehow wandered into like an Abeloth's lair, which I really hope you didn't nearby. Looks mildly concerned as he kind of looks at the windows and around the monastery. I don't know what would have done that unless there's a archmage or perhaps some sort of deity that you upset nearby.
I would hope it's not nearby because I'm pretty sure it happened as we sat at the table.
He looks very concerned when you say this. That's concerning. This monastery is sanctified. That is some very powerful magics to be able to pull a group into a shared delusion in the middle of a monastery like that.
I turn to Ziara. Hey, you're not like you and I. We're not on bad terms with our gods, right? Like I don't think I am. I don't think you are, right?
No.
I like you just checking in.
Would there be any way to see if there was remnants from a spell that might have been cast on us as a group?
He thinks for a minute. If the spell was still active, if someone had the ability to detect magic, you'd be able to see it, but if the spell is past, he thinks about it for a minute. I don't know of any way to detect a spell that is been woven and then dispersed. But I am no wizard. I am just a priest.
We need to seek out someone with some divination.
If you're speaking of divination magic of that nature, there is a traveling people's camp outside of town. I know that sometimes they're... He thinks for the word. I don't know the correct term they use, but they're matron mother, usually, of the caravan has some sort of abilities to do things like that. They might be able to assist you, if you trust them. He kind of shrugs.
Traveling people. Is this a history or something else?
Yeah, that could be a history check.
Hard. That's unfortunate. Okay.
Or a religion check, I guess?
So this guy is a head abbot or head priest of this place?
Yes.
Okay, those are the same. 16 traveling people.
The traveling people are like a band of... Think Romani from our world. They're a band of culturally diverse people who just kind of travel. They don't have a set place that they live. They go from place to place, working as traders, tinkers, fix-its. Depending on where you are in the country, they're considered to be thieves. But in other parts of the country, they're considered to be lifesavers. Like, it really depends on where they are. So,
Makes sense.
you've heard all of those stories as being a traveler yourself.
Fair enough.
And yeah, John, this guy is the head of the monastery.
Well, is he a priest or an abbot?
They don't have that kind of structure per se. He's just known as like father. He's a priest of some kind. What exactly, like, where he fits in the hierarchy is a little ambiguous.
There's names on
I say to him, good priest, we seem to have the wolves under control, and you seem to not have much of an issue with them anymore. Is there anything else that you think we could do to help the area? Looking for larger and bigger things to help everybody.
Shakes his head. From here, I don't think so. We've seen, like you said, we seem to have gotten the wolves mostly under control. I've heard of rumors of bandit activity in the upper valleys. How true those are, I don't know. Word's only just begun spreading down here since the snow's melted. I've also been hearing of some civil unrest back in Waterdeep and on the coast. I also do know that there is something going on out further in the other direction. He kind of points over his shoulder. Something about a war front moving in. One of the tribes out there warring with another tribe in one of the kingdoms. I'm not sure who exactly going to war with each other. I could look into it more from some of the other travelers. I've not exactly been keeping tabs on the distant reaches.
That'll do. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. I'm always happy to help, and if you need anything else, he looks at all of you. I am here to help if I can do anything. Please feel free to ask.
Always. Thank you, Father.
Any idea what a wave matter wave detector is, Father?
He looks at you. He kind of cocks his head. Goes, I don't know what those words would mean in conjunction with each other. No.
We need to find a wizard.
So there's a good chance it was a shared hallucination, and it took like that much time for it to happen. So there's a good chance that nobody knows anything about it, and it could be unrelated to anything that we're doing.
I do have a question for you,
That's why
Father.
we're looking. Wait, John, was that out of character?
Yes, that was out of character.
Okay.
I do have a question
Make
for
sure
you,
you say
Father.
that because I will always react in character.
I thought your character was saying that too.
Yeah.
No.
Because that is something that legitimately you've set up your character might say.
Yeah. If it is helpful, we can do the put your hand on your head in a very awkward position. If you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
the feather hat. I do have a question for you, Father.
Yes.
While we were in this,
Leave your brother alone.
I saw something that disappeared from me. That was a brooch that looked like a star with a ruby. It seemed familiar, but I could not place it. Do you recognize this description?
A star with a ruby in the shape of in a brooch. He says.
Yeah.
Cocks his head. Thinks about it for a second. Perhaps would you be able to draw it for me?
You, yeah. I like will try to find some sort of paper or pen.
He pulls out
and try to draw it.
he pulls out of like his belt pouch a tiny like piece of paper, something that you would clearly like scribble like in notes down on real quick, and a piece of charcoal, and it puts it on the table in front of you.
Mm-hmm. And and I'll try to like sketch out.
Okay.
What I saw.
Roll a performance check, or you can roll history if you're proficient with that, because you are trying to remember something.
I'm proficient in neither, but I have a higher charisma. So
All right, there you go.
13.
That's not bad. All right, so you draw out this symbol for him, trying to get as many of the details you can remember as possible in there. And he looks at it and he goes, "This looks familiar." He thinks about it for a second.
It seemed familiar and important to me, but I couldn't quite place what it was.
He kind of taps his chin for a second and goes, "I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I think I know where I could go look. You intend to stay the night again, correct? You're not planning on leaving in the morning?"
I believe so. I look to my group and kind of try to confirm.
That's the plan so far.
Yeah. I guess we're going to go down to the market this evening still.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we intend to just get some information and come back and stay the night.
Fair enough. If I have not come talk to you by this evening when you go to bed, come find me in the morning. I'm going to go look in the library archives and see if I can find this. I think I know where I might need to look, so it shouldn't take too long, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I apologize.
Of course.
One last
just thought I might ask you.
No problem.
Apologies. One last question, Father. Any caves nearby with any weird markings of any sort?
Caves. He shakes his head. Not this far down the mountains. If you go further up, yes. I believe there's some caves that used to be inhabited by an old barbarian tribe that lived in the area. That have some strange hieroglyphs on them. But nothing close.
Thank you.
He nods to the group of you and then proceeds to walk off. He has a slightly puzzled look on his face as he does, and he pulls the loaf of bread back out of his sleeve and starts kind of chewing on it as he weaves his way, not talking to anyone really, as he weaves his way out of the cafeteria and through a set of doors.
To the market!
To the market.
To the market. Oh dear.
See what we can find. See what we can hear.
Alright, cool.
Thing
So-
of maybe wearing a brighter colored shirt, my colors will come back normal. So we're not just wearing black and white.
And maybe your camera will adjust.
Maybe. We'll see.
We'll play with it over this next week and see if there's any way we can adjust like the colors of the camera. Because it's annoying to us.
Switch to this one, the one Shayla gave me a few years ago. But that's when it turns green. And so
Fair enough.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I don't know what's going on.
Who knows? Alright, so you guys proceed to head to the town market. So you have to leave the monastery. In order to leave the monastery, you have to kind of exit the cafeteria where the father did, and you enter into an open courtyard. There are stairs that lead up above this section of the monastery to kind of offices and like sick rooms, that type of thing. They like to keep the sick near the food, that way it's not hard to transport the food to the sick. And then across the way is where they have the library and the living quarters for the monks. And in the center is a training courtyard for, because of the nature of Helm, they practice in various martial arts and fighting of weapons. And then there's a gate that leads out and a switchback that goes down the side of this rather steep hill to the bottom where the village is. It takes you about 30 minutes to get down there. Unless you want to stop and do something in between then.
Anyone on the trail towards our way to the market?
No, not currently. No one seems to be coming to or from the monastery right now. It seems like most of the denizens of the monastery are inside either eating or preparing food, and most of the villagers seem to be down in the market doing brisk trade. Like from where you're at, you can see down into the center of town where the town square is, and you can see that a lot of the village is gathered there around stalls and shops and whatnot, conversing with each other.
So is it a fairly steep hill we're walking down? Is it wooded?
No, it is not wooded. It is mostly covered in grasses and brush. And yeah, it's pretty steep, but it's carved. They have carved switchbacks into the hill so that you're not just walking down this like 45% grade.
That's good. That's good.
So can we see up? Like, can I look towards the mountains further up? And is there any evidence of like, I don't know, cook fires or any smoke up there?
Yeah, totally. So just with your like passive look around, like as you look out from the gate of this area, you can see that this is the tallest hill in the region immediately around you before it starts going up into the mountains.
So top of a big foothill.
Basically. And that the area immediately around the village has been cleared of trees, and there's a pretty dense pine tree line on the outside of the villages. In the immediate vicinity in those pines, you can't really see any cook fires except for the area where the traveling people are clearly set up in kind of the no man's land between the trees and the village. But that's like glaringly obvious due to the bright colored wagons that they currently have. So in the setting sun, you can just like, whew. And then as you look further into the mountains, you can see where the road kind of goes up and swerves in between hills and whatnot, and you see what you think might be cook fires up the road somewhere, and then what looks like a much larger concentration where you think the next town along the road might be. So either there's somebody caught between the two towns that decided to stop for the day, or something else is going on in between the two of them. But from your vantage, it's very difficult to see what exactly is happening. You just see the smokes. So.
Right on. That's what I was thinking about.
Okay. Perfect. Anyone else?
I think we should find the more rough-looking merchant because they might dive and delve for their own merchandise, giving more information / stories of the area.
Huh. Yeah. Good call. We'll check in on them.
Okay.
I
Are there a
want
lot of
to
so when we get to the
try
market,
and see
yeah.
what the rumor mill has going on about rumors of the area, whether it's like, oh man, someone keeps stealing the same cow, or whether it's more ruse on the horizon. I want to just kind of feel out the.
Yeah, you want to
the
peruse
rumor.
and hear the rumor mill.
Yeah.
Colton, you want to find the rough and tumbled looking merchants. John, what were you gonna ask?
So there's the marketplace. Is it like a central area in the town?
Yeah. So it seems that the way the town was built is they built a town square with like a statue in the middle, and then kind of built their community things around it, and then built the residents outside of that. So in the central square area, you obviously have some stalls set up for various vendors selling various things. Then you have actual like shops like a blacksmith, a tailor, a cobbler. The town hall is also down there.
So
Yes?
ideally, we'll be looking for fairly well maintained tents and whatnot, or ones that are out of town, because those are the traveling merchants.
Yes.
And if they're not set up in the main fair, that might be questionable. So talking about finding somebody who's maybe dealing in illicit goods, but I think if we're just looking for somebody from out of town, maybe like some of the rougher tents might hold what we might be looking for.
Okay, so you'll be looking at the traveling merchants too.
Valid.
Yeah, they'd be the ones getting hit by bandits, I think.
I think I kind of want to look at and see if I hear anybody kind of talking like they're crazy. Like
Okay.
mumbling like things that don't make sense to other people. Because maybe they've been affected by the same things we have.
Okay.
That's a good one. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we can do all that. All right, so you guys get down to the bottom of the switchbacks, and it's a pretty straight, like, clear thoroughfare from the bottom of the switchback to the center of the town where the market is. As you get in, it's having a bit of a festive feel. There's lanterns hanging up off of strings that people have clearly put up. It's not that they're having a festival per se, but this seems to be kind of their general run-of-the-mill, how they spend their evenings. And you can hear the blacksmith clanging in the background. You hear a lot of people chattering, and there's a fair group of just people everywhere. And then the jarringly colorful traveling people clearly walking around in the town, whereas the townspeople are covered in more greens and grays and blacks. The traveling people are like, look at me in my bright flamboyant red and my jarringly yellow pants. Stuff like that. So it's easy to determine who they are versus who the townspeople are. And then there's other people obviously walking through who are travelers or mercenaries such as yourselves, who are wearing much more rough clothing. So that's kind of the scene. How are you guys going to split up?
Brenna? Ciara. You and me, let's go check out the rumor mill and look for the not quite sane. And then Jareth and Grizz, you guys both want to go look at the harder looking merchants, the rougher ones. Sakar, do you want to come with us or go with them?
I'll go with you guys.
Okay.
All right.
Just-
Alright, so to be fair, what I'm wearing, I guess my character, traveling clothes, hood up, and I think maybe a mask sort of thing, just because like dragonborns aren't very common and they tend to make everybody be like, the fuck sort of thing.
Walking lizard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll go with the ladies first on what you guys are doing. So you're splitting off to go to look into the rumor mill and find anybody crazy. So are you going to just wander the market and kind of listen into what you hear, or are you going to go to someplace specific?
And do a little bit of wandering, maybe engage if there's anything interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll probably stay a little bit behind and like look more into the like alleyways because the crazies are probably more ostracized.
Fair enough. Okay, Courtney, you want to add to that? Okay. So, yes?
So, Jareth, you wanted to talk to more of the traveling, colorful folk, and I wanted to find some that may be from the area that had the rougher clothes and wanted to delve in nearby caverns and maybe see what caverns or whatnot that they won't go near.
Alright, I got one other thing to say. We never talked about where we want to go from here. Like, us as a group, where do we want to go from here?
We're finding that out now. That's part of this is we're finding out clues so we know.
Yeah, but I mean, are we just trying to fight bandits? I mean, are we trying to see why they're bandits? Like, having a little bit of a plan of attack might be better for trying to figure out what we're going to learn.
This is
Well,
a
I feel like-
fact-finding mission.
I feel like this being thrown into whatever we were thrown into last session is kind of like has switched our focus from, okay, we're the mercenaries trying to earn a buck off of wolves and bandits to
What just happened to us?
what the hell just happened to us and why are we all hallucinating the same weird dream. So we're trying to get that at least knowledge of why we're jumping into this weird dream, especially since it's not our first time that we know of, since Brenna has remembered that we've been there before.
Yeah.
So that's kind of currently our priority or main objective.
Someone cast major magic on us. That's kind of disconcerting.
Well, that level of magic, probably not somebody in a town, might be a traveler, might be a high-level wizard.
Rumors.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I feel like a tavern or something after all the shops have closed. Like, I hate being an adult and then meta gaming all this way, but learning a lot and all that. After the shops close up and liquors flow, that might be a place to go. Aside from that, okay, we'll see what happens.
Well, you know, I'm always down for the tavern, so let's go.
Well, I feel like if we like go and find, then we can.
Down, though, right?
We
Not
can
right
go
now.
to
We're
the-
still looking for stuff.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we can.
It's still middle of the day, or it's evening, right? You said
It's evening,
sun's
yeah.
going down past zenith or whatever.
Yeah, it's going down. So the sun's probably probably got like another hour and a half before like true dark.
Well, we still have that lead of going to the wizard lady person at the traveling troupe. Like we could fact find, get some information, and then head there.
And you said it's springtime, right, Jordan?
Yeah. It's probably
So we're
like May.
looking at 38 o'clock right now.
Yeah. Honestly, it's probably like 7 right now where you guys are, and then the sun's going to set in about an hour.
Behind the mountains?
Shit, where's the compass? Sorry, remembering map. Yes? Yes.
Okay, so sun will go down slightly sooner than normal.
Mountains are west.
Yes.
I mean,
But anyways, I feel like that's kind of become the main priority or objective is trying to figure out what happened to us over wolves and bandits, and that's kind of why we're all trying to hunt down this information.
Can we continue to listen first off and see what we find? Are we all on the same page?
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
All right. So, for the three of you who are currently wandering the market, just trying to hear what you hear versus and find the crazies, roll perception checks. Let's see what you manage to pick up.
Wait, who's running?
Everyone.
Okay.
Not everyone. That would be specifically Shayla, Brenna, and Courtney.
Oh.
We'll
Okay.
get to you, Colton and John, in a second.
All right. Well, I'll be right back.
Perception?
Yes, perception.
21.
25 critical.
Okay, 25.
21.
21.
I got
What, Courtney?
I got a nat 20, so it's 21.
Okay, cool. All right,
If
everybody's
that-
burning their 20s on a perception check. Good to know.
We are successful.
Okay, so yeah, you guys, you start wandering the market. You're going in between the stalls, and you're listening to things. Obviously, there are like conglomerates, groups, people talking about things. Obviously, a lot of what you're hearing is just like the chatter of people talking to merchants, or talking to their friends. As you're kind of going through and listening for these things, though, you do hear some confirmation of some rumors, like what the father was telling you, that there's bandit activity up further into the mountains. One of the... Shayla, your camera just shot off to the far side of the room.
We're good. We're good.
You also hear, at one point, a definitive person, like, this is clearly one of the people from out of town. He's in slightly better garb, who is like, yeah, no, there is problems going on in Waterdeep right now. There is an uprising. Some of the workers have decided they're going to revolt and they're not going to be doing work anymore, and the city's not putting it down. There's not going to be trade coming through from that direction this year. It's going to all go to hell. Everything's wrong. The dock workers need to be put in their place. Like, this guy is going off.
Somebody doesn't like unions.
On top of that, you find somebody else who is wearing very different garb from that person. That person is wearing, like, trousers, a nice shirt with an overcoat and a cloak on it. This other person is wearing something that looks like it's for a much warmer climate, much more sand-colored tones with a turban, and they're much darker skinned. And they're talking about how there is some sort of uprising going off to the east in the desert areas, where they're talking about the Ganassi have suddenly just come back and are trying to assert dominance over their old empire again. And no one's really sure where they came from, and though a lot of the wandering tribes are starting to move further west to get away from it, and that they're worried a war's brewing, and that areas like this are going to come under attack because of trade routes between the east and the west. As you guys continue moving through the market, you're not really seeing anybody who, like, screams crazy to you. But you do see one gentleman who is clearly a traveler from afar, standing in front of a small wagon tent area that he's set up off to the side of the square, who looks rough and tumbled and seems to be mumbling to himself every time there's not a customer actively at his stall. Just kind of under his breath type of thing. If you want to try and get closer and hear more, Brenna, that is totally within your rights.
Yeah, I'm gonna be walking up to the mumbler.
Okay. Obviously, or are you going to try and remain hidden?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to sneak up until I can kind of hear a little bit, and depending on what I hear, I'll make myself known.
Okay. So roll a stealth check and roll a perception check.
16 for stealth.
Okay.
And 14 for perception.
All right. So, due to the nature of the market, it's not hard to stealth up towards this guy's wagon and kind of look like you're perusing something in another stall nearby, and be close enough to be able to hear what he's saying. So he's mumbling. He's like, I don't know why are we here? What's the point of being here? Like, why here? Why did they send me here? This is nowhere. I don't understand. Like, what could possibly be interesting about this place at this time? It doesn't make sense. Why? What are these people? There's no one here. There's no one of interest. No interesting events are happening. What is going on? All of the interesting events are either in the west or the east. We're in the middle of the freaking... It's like a hand for an anvil situation, except nobody's swinging the hammer. I don't know what's going on. Why here? Here? Why? And it's just kind of his... stream of consciousness thoughts as he's just kind of mumbling as he's moving things around his shop or putting stuff in a lockbox, that sort of thing. But as soon as like somebody walks up, he's like, "Oh, hey, how are you? What do you need? I've got lanterns, I've got oil, I've got some roses. Do you need something special for the mistress? I've got some special items that they could use." And just immediate car salesman.
Okay.
Want to approach him?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and approach him and be like, why is nothing interesting here?
All right, so I take it you're going to take a moment where his shop is not currently being, like, pursued by other customers.
Yeah.
Okay, all three of you or just you?
I'm just gonna sidle up behind him when he's not necessarily paying attention.
Okay.
I'll hang back, but listen.
All right, so the other two of you are going to hang back and listen from a distance? Okay.
Why are you laughing at me?
All right, so you go up to him and ask him what's not interesting?
Yeah.
He currently has his back to you and is fumbling around with something inside his wagon. Like, his wagon has, like, drop-down, like, storage places on the side. And he's currently fiddling with something, and as soon as you say that, he, like, jumps, and you hear a smack as his hands hit the top of the thing, and he goes, "Shit, fuck, He spins around, looks you in the eye, and goes, "Who are you? What do you want?"
Just curious, what's not interesting?
We're in the middle of nowhere, and there's no interesting things here. We're in the middle of a podunk town in the middle of nowhere. What is interesting about this town? Tell me.
I mean, anything can be interesting if you make it so.
Is this a proposition?
No. Just philosophy.
That took a turn.
He looks at you questioningly again and goes, I suppose anything can be interesting, but some things are more interesting than others. Wouldn't you agree?
I mean, yes, but if you if you always look at the negative as a negative, you can never look at it as a positive.
You're one of those glass half full people, aren't you?
Not necessarily.
Light in here.
What?
I want to like awkwardly walk, like just walk inside and be like, but the best kind of person to be is the person who realizes that you can drink whatever's in the glass.
Okay, so you do that?
Yes.
He looks at you and kind of looks you up and down and goes, I mean, I suppose, but what if it's poison?
That's half the adventure. But who sent you? You seem to have mumbled about someone sending you here, the most boring place.
He kind of looks at the two of you, like he's looking the two of you up and down and is kind of twitching back and forth.
I'm just kind of peeking my head around the corner, watching what's going on, but don't want to be part of it.
Yeah, that's fine. So he's kind of eyeballing both of you, and to give a descriptor of what this guy looks like, he's nothing really special looking. He has a slightly more pointed nose, and his hair is just jet black. He looks like he's probably in his 30s, maybe? And while he does look like he's definitely been traveling and he's on the road, he doesn't look like somebody whose, like, entire life is spent on the front of that wagon driving from place to place to place. He doesn't have that look. And so he looks at the two of you and goes, I feel like you're looking for something here. What can I actually help you with? What do you want?
Well, I've lived my life here, and I've had some interesting events happen to me recently, so I'm just curious about newcomers.
He nods slowly. So you're asking for my life story, is that what I'm hearing?
Not necessarily.
For that.
Shayla, you're too
broke
far
out.
from your mic.
I am definitely asking for that.
Yeah.
Anything that you come across at all in your way out here, avoiding the apparently interesting war fronts, which obviously you could have made much better money at. So why not?
He looks at you, he scratches his cheek and goes, you know the funny thing about war fronts? The great thing about war fronts, and the bad thing, is you can make a lot of money, but it doesn't take much for the army to just turn around and requisition all your stuff and try to throw you in a uniform and say, here's a spear, go fight.
Yeah. Quite deadly.
And who's had that happen to him?
Shayla,
So-
what?
Sounds like a man who has had that happen to him.
Maybe, maybe not. Maybe I'm just cautious.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So have you ever come across anything that has been magically interesting in your travels and or in your wares?
He looks at you and goes, magically interesting. I mean, everything is magically interesting. We live in a world where someone with a wave of their hand can cast a ball of fire that blows up a horde of goblins, or with a thought can change the very nature of reality. Divine intervention is a norm, not uncommon. I mean, magically interesting.
This I know
Everything.
personally.
Everything can be magically interesting. Are you looking for something specific?
Lean in close to him. I'm like, I'm going to do like a quiet, like, just be like, look, just between you and me. Can you keep this on the down low? Just between you and me?
Sure. I'm always interested in secrets.
Between you and me. Somebody cast something on me and my friend here a while ago that threw us into a joint hallucination where we had to go through a dungeon. And then we were back exactly where we were, eating food.
Sounds interesting.
More like terrifying.
Interesting things
Interchangeable.
do happen here, but finding why they happened is the hard part.
Why is such a broad term, you know?
Indeed.
Why
Who
something
perhaps?
happens?
Who might be the better question? So, as someone who's traveled and who is looking for what is actually interesting in a place where you consider things not super interesting at the moment, I slide one a silver. I wouldn't mind if you would take your ear out for some interesting rumors about magic.
Interesting
magicians.
rumors about magic, huh?
Mm-hmm.
He takes the coin, and then he kind of bites it. He goes, that's good silver. And drops it into a coin purse, and then pulls out of said coin purse a monocle, which he proceeds to polish with a piece of his sleeve, put it on, and then look at the two of you, and then look over at Courtney's character, who is with the monocle, look back, put the monocle away. Goes, interesting. Very interesting.
Care to share?
He proceeds to hold up a finger, turns around, walks to his cart, and starts fumbling around in his cart for a minute. Comes back, pulls out, and puts a piece of metal on the table in front of you guys. It's worn, looks like it's might have been part of a shield or perhaps an armor plate. It's nicked, it's dinged, it's bent. There looks like there was some sort of sigil carved into it at one point, but half of it's gone, and the other half is very illegible, other than it looks like it might have been a coat of arms. And he says, sliding it over to Shayla's character, hold on to this. Might be useful later.
Fair enough. I take the thing and examine it best I can.
What tale is that?
It's a piece of metal.
I can discern that, but what exactly is this piece of metal?
Can I understand anything about it?
Roll an investigation check. He looks at it and he goes, it's a piece of metal.
But what could it do for us?
Ah, someone knows how to ask the right questions.
I'm still peeking my head in. I'm not even in the tent at all. I'm just peeking my head in.
He looks over to you and he goes, in the right circumstances, in the right hands, it can take you to a place. Not necessarily a place you want to be, but a place you may need to go to.
Huh. Interesting.
What exactly is the right... And what are those circumstances? Or the hands?
Great question. But not the right question.
What sort of circumstances would those be?
Again, great question, but not the right question. You see, I'm one of those people who's bound by certain rules, certain ways of working. I can't tell you more than what you're ready to know unless you ask me the right questions. Sorry. I must say, though, I have found this much more interesting than I thought I would.
Lightly spin a piece of metal as I'm looking at it.
Yeah, what was your investigation check, Shayla?
It was 18.
18. So as you're investigating it, it looks like it was a piece of armor. And judging off of it, there is definitely a coat of arms, but you can't tell what the coat of arms is. You're missing most of it. It looks like there might be some sort of animal on it. Some sort of, maybe a horse? Back end of a horse?
Yeah.
Does it need a specific race to use it?
Some sort of armor.
Okay, that was a lot of words all thrown on top of each other in Discord. Brenna, what?
Does it need a specific race to use it?
Race?
Yeah.
No. No,
Is
you
there
need
a
the right talent.
Is there a specific way to activate it, or
You just need the talent, honey.
what talent would that be? Magic.
There's so much more to magic than just magic.
Well, that was ominous.
Cleric. My magic is vastly different from a sorcerer. We weave different ways.
I mean, I guess, sure.
Do we need to know a certain, phrasing for it?
Shakes his head. He looks at you and goes, let me tell you this way. When you need to know, you'll know. It'll be obvious. As for right now, he looks at Brenna, then he looks at Courtney's character. The two of you have been through this before. You haven't necessarily had this conversation with me because I'm not always there. But you've been through this before, and I will tell you it will not be as pleasant as last time. But keep in mind, you won last time, so you can do it again. Maybe this time get out with your souls? Gives you a thumbs up, and says, "Now, if you don't mind," snaps his fingers, and the tent starts rolling back. "I would like to not be here in about an hour. So, please."
Also ominous. Have a lovely day.
Yeah, that's what you have to say about.
He starts
I
rolling
never-
up his stuff. He starts grabbing wares. Like, he is moving as he's just
never
tossing
caught
stuff
your
into
name,
packs into
sir.
stuff. "Oh, my name?" He grins over his shoulder at you and goes, "It's called Prospero.
Prospero.
Hopefully, we'll see each other again."
Wait, are you saying I don't have a soul?
No, that's not what I said. Again, you're not asking the right questions. In about the
What?
span of 2 minutes, he has cleared the table, he has pulled the table into his cart, broken everything down, and is currently pulling a horse around to saddle to the front of the wagon. Last piece of advice before I go. The mists are always fun. Make sure you got a compass. And then
you have a
jumps
compass
on the
as well?
wagon and starts off.
Nope, he's going somewhere interesting, probably. I put the piece of armor in my bag. Okay.
That's all.
You know, I'll bet the library could give me a coat of arms, potentially. You guys
Alright.
think the boys will be in the tavern by now?
So while you three are thinking about that encounter, Colton, John, the three ladies have walked off, leaving the two of you alone together in the market. What is it that you would desire to do?
Well, so we were, I don't know, I feel like we were trying to go, look at the fancy people?
So I think you were looking for the fancier people, the travelers who came from out of town, whilst I was going to investigate the ones who may know the area just a little bit more. Although I may get more misinformation
Yeah.
that way. 'Cause
So you're
you
just
never
looking
know.
for local people who have been traveling and had a hard time?
Who may have like delved into the places close by the rugged people. You can tell that like literally go looking for their own product in old deserted places, you know,
So
and
you're
then they
looking
come
for
back.
the adventurer type people, the rangers, the local rangers type of thing.
Who then try to sell what they found
Oh yeah, totally. Okay.
on the road. Those kind of marketers that literally delve and then go and sell their stuff.
Okay.
So they would look a little bit more rugged than like the travelers who are bright colored, such as the ones you wanted to convene with. And
Well, it's not necessarily that I wanted to convene with them. I was just thinking, people who aren't from around here would dress differently.
Yes.
So, like, if you're talking about somebody who is from around here and has had an adventurous lifestyle, that's one thing. So, yeah, I'll tag along and see where that goes.
yeah, I just figured they might know a little bit more than somebody who's not been around this area as long.
Okay, so we'll go from there. So you guys start going around the market. I'm not going to have you roll perception checks for this because it's going to be pretty obvious when you find this guy. As you're going through the market looking for these more obviously local folk who are more rugged, you do see an individual who the local people are waving to, saying hi to, whatnot, but no one's really visiting his stall. He is just set up on the ground with a tarp with a small canvas over the top of him, and he's got a couple of weird odds and ends kind of laid out in front of him. And this is an older guy. Like, this dude looks old. Like, I am a tree that has weathered the sands of time old. And he is sitting there cross-legged, kind of just resting, got a pipe in his teeth, waving at everybody who comes by. And he's got in front of him just a couple of wares of old stuff. Like there's an old shield, an old dagger that's a little rusted, but clearly is like a very fine make, but it's looking old. It's old or ornate work that you guys don't associate with this era. And a few other odds and ends that you're not really sure how to identify. As you go ahead.
Oh, so it sounds like he's a trader. It sounds like I know at Ren fairs you got people like that, or mountain men gatherings, and they lay it out so you can trade them or talk about it and whatnot. So, interesting looking dagger, you say?
Yes.
So
elder guy, what race per se, or?
From a distance, because he has long hair, he looks human, but he could be elvish. He's definitely not a halfling, and he's definitely like an orc or something. He looks human. Most of the people around here look human, though you have seen some people who were clearly of elvish descent.
I guess walk up to him and say, good hunting, old timer.
He looks up at you, he kind of looks you up and down, and he goes, yeah, no, good hunting. Especially since it looks like you're some of those guys who've been taking those wolves out of them and causing me problems. Puts his pipe back in his teeth and starts puffing on it again.
Oh yeah, wolves. We got a lot of them. We've been doing some work for the monastery up on the hill, trying to see where to go from here. It's a nice looking dagger you got there.
He nods and pulls his pipe back out and he goes, yeah, no, that is a nice dagger. It's a nice little story about how I found it, too. You interested?
Oh, indeed I am. The more I know about good, cool things, the more I'm attached to them.
He nods. He looks at both of you and he says, you're together, right, I assume, right?
Yeah.
He motions and you can see where there's a couple of cushions off to the side and he kind of twitches his hand and a skeletal, almost ethereal hand pops out, reaches over, grabs a cushion, tosses it at your feet, Colton, and then grabs another one, tosses it at your feet, John. Then the hand and his hand motion together, and he's like, sit. I got a tail.
Stay a while. Listen. Yeah, I'll sit down.
As this is going on, I want to be like looking at the more odds and ends and see if there's anything interesting or like off-putting that may have seemed
odd. Yeah. All right.
In the finding.
Roll an investigation check. Yes, investigation check.
18.
So as you're looking at it, you notice that while he has several pieces, he does have some crate behind him, but the pieces in front of you, there is one that is very clearly a jawbone. This jawbone is slightly longer and elongated, of clearly a predator with several of the sharp teeth still in place. And it's big. Like, the jawbone is big. And you can tell it's not the full jawbone. It looks like it's probably the back half that's supposed to connect to the skull, and it doesn't have the front half. And it's old, it's weathered, it's a little yellowed, but it still has, the teeth still have like a gleam to them. Next to that, you see what clearly is an old, like, chest plate, but the way it's designed is it doesn't look like it's sized to fit a humanoid, or the typical sized humanoid. It looks like it's meant to fit something maybe smaller, maybe with a slightly different chest proportion.
Is there anything on that chest plate?
Not that you can see from just glancing at it. And as you're doing this, this is when he begins to talk about the dagger. So he motions to the dagger and he says, I found that dagger just before winter hit. Up the mountains, there's this little valley. Well, little's a relative term, I guess. That supposedly used to be the seat of a kingdom that controlled this area. But that's a old story. Old story. Like, that story was old when I was a child. And they claim there used to be a castle of sorts up there. I went to the place where the castle ruins are supposed to be, on top of a cliff overlooking part of the valley. Kind of dug around, see what I could see. Went through the stones, found what looks like an old cellar, so maybe there is some truth to there being an old castle up there at one point. The only thing left is the cellar area. I found this dagger on a shelf. However, the thing that was weird about it, and about that whole place, is the entire time I was up there, the entire time I was there, it felt like something was watching me. And there was this area that I couldn't get to because it was covered in brambles and briars and all sorts of nasty plants that aren't normal to that area. And they were congregated in a ring around something. Couldn't get into it. As soon as I picked up this dagger, though, he picks it up again, but this time again with the skeletal hand. The thing kind of spins it around for a second. As soon as I did, I felt like the thing stopped watching me. And then, I decided not to spend the night there. However, every night, since I got this dagger back to town, we've had wolves. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. But then he shows you a symbol on the hilt of the dagger. There is a very clear inscription of two wolves chasing each other, like on the hilt. And then as you flip it over to the backside, there's an image of these two wolves taking down some sort of humanoid creature and ripping it apart. And he goes, "Don't know if it has anything to do with those wolves you were hunting, but I don't believe in coincidences when it comes to old, probably cursed places up in these mountains."
Well, that's a really cool story, and I appreciate that very much. My question is, what would you like for that dagger, and where'd you say them ruins were?
He grins. I give you maps of the ruins with the dagger, 2 silver.
I think I can do that. I think I can do you a little better. Gold is 5 silver, right?
Gold is 10 silver, actually.
Okay, so, like, it says in my bag I got 10 gold. But that's a lot. So could some of it be like not gold?
Oh yeah, no, you can totally break that down into whatever quantity you need it to be. So yeah,
all right, well,
totally.
I offer the old man 5 silver, and offer him thanks for his time and the information.
He looks at the silver, and again the skeletal hand reaches out and picks it up from you. And then the skeletal hand also passes the dagger to you as he pulls a parchment out of his, a rolled parchment out of, like, the crate behind him. It's not particularly big. It's probably only an 8x12. And he goes, 2 valleys up, and once you get past the gates, you'll know what I'm talking about when you get there. This is where that starts. However, I do give you one warning. He looks around. He says, "The monastery probably has more information about that place than I do if they were to dig into the stacks about it, but it's the old story that concerns me if you're going to go up there. The story is that kingdom fell because their king became a vampire, and the people eventually overthrew him and tore down his castle in retribution for all of the things he'd done. I don't know if that's true. But that is something to be wary of. If there was a vampire up there, who the heck knows what still is hanging out in that area? So,
I've got one more question for you.
What's up?
What beast is this skull from?
He looks at the skull bone, at the jawbone, and he goes, "If I had to guess, I'd say that's a dragon's jawbone right there."
Whereabouts might you have found that?
He chuckles. That valley you guys just got a map to. Again, with the story about this place, that king, who was supposedly a vampire, took the place from a dragon that used to live there. Whether that dragon is good or bad really depends on which old storyteller you're listening to. But, supposedly, he had some sort of mansion or castle up there that wasn't the castle that the vampire lived in. I went looking in the area where it was supposed to be. It's mostly swamp now. And as I was rooting around, I found that. In the ruins of what looked like an old building. That has been there a very, very, very long time, and those teeth are still gleaming. The only thing that does that is dragon teeth. Only way I could get that 100% confirmed is if I take it to one of the wizards in the cities nearby, but frankly, I'm too old for that. I don't want to make that kind of trip. Not to mention, I don't really want to deal with those wizards. They're asshats.
Well, thank you for your time, old timer. Thank you for your time, old timer.
I said, a bunch of stuffy old men, ain't they? Them and them books.
You know it. You launch the two of you.
Thank you
says, if you go up to that valley, do be careful. I don't like my customers coming back dead.
Well, thank you, old timer. I will treasure this map and this dagger.
He nods.
I thank the old timer with 2 silver and say buy a drink on me.
The silver gets picked up by the skeletal hand, and he looks at you and goes, I appreciate your generosity. Okay.
All right, well, that constitutes what I was looking for in this town square from what I could see.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah, so I think it was a good time for you and I to go find the other 3 and maybe make our way to a tavern or so.
Okay.
All right, so me being an outlander and a wanderer and all that, I look at the map and I'm trying to remember where he was pointing, like 2 valleys up the mountain and all that.
Yeah, so as you
Do
look
I
at the
see
map,
anything on this scroll?
as you look at the map and you look up the mountain, you can see that the road goes up the mountain. And then the map itself, you can see there's a spot that's clearly marked the gates at like the very bottom of the map. And then going off the map, there's a road, there's a town, it's just marked town, there's no name to it. And then it continues up around, and you can see an area where it's clearly delineating a cliff. Doesn't necessarily say how big a cliff is, but the way the markings are drawn, there is a cliff there. And instead of going up the cliff, it goes around the backside of the cliff and up. Till eventually it curves out and continues out the valley. But splitting off from the road as it continues out the valley, there's a spot that he's marked that says the Pillar Stone. And then marked on the Pillar Stone, it says Castle. And then into an area that's marked clearly as swamps that's taking up a huge chunk of the lowland part of the valley, he's got another spot that says Mansion, ? And there's an X drawn there.
All right, that sounds really cool. Sounds really cool. There's a lot of cool stuff.
Sounds like there's a lot of cool stuff on there.
Could be.
Could be.
Ah, we've lost them. They're back.
Yeah, the laptop turned off, I guess.
It's all
Don't
good.
touch it very often.
It's just weird because it's plugged in. It just turned off.
Didn't touch the mouse fast enough or something. I don't know.
You can
All
change
right,
it.
so last I really heard was the gates in a town that was unnamed. Just said town.
Yeah. So I described the map to John. Basically, the general features that the old man wrote down. Before we get you guys' parties back together, let's take a 5-10 minute break real quick, get some water, whatever, and then we will continue. Fair?
Agreed.
Cool.
Yep.
So, John, Colton, since you guys are still the point of view characters at the moment, you have now talked to the old merchant. Is there anything else you guys would like to do before you go find the ladies?
Well, nah. There was, I don't know if it was just to Brenna, but there was mention of a witch lady to talk about with all of the traveling people.
Yeah,
but, that might be better as a group or, yeah.
I'd
So
say probably just keep my ears open on the search back to go find the ladies, because we never really talked about like a meet back here place, so we kind of got to go walk around the town.
I'm willing to bet they were on the opposite side of the central plaza with everything else.
It's a fair assumption. If you guys want to roll perception checks, see if you pick up any more interesting rumors as you're going through, that is totally okay, and we'll have you guys start meeting up with the ladies.
That's the boys or everybody?
The boys.
18.
Okay. 17.
Still tiny.
Cool.
They're
All right, so
tiny.
as you guys are going through the market, you're hearing a lot of the similar things to what they heard earlier. However, what languages do you two specifically speak? I know you speak Common.
I got Draconic as well.
Draconic, okay.
Got Common, Dwarven, Undercommon, and Infernal.
Okay. So yeah, as you guys are going through the town, you hear a smattering of other languages, none of which you guys necessarily recognize, and you basically come to the same conclusions they did, that there's some sort of war going on in the east, that there's a lot of civil unrest going on in the west, and that there's some sort of banditry activity going on in the mountains in between where you are and the west coast. So, you eventually find them as you see this beat-up wagon kind of rolling its way out of the main square down towards the gates of town. And all three of them look slightly confuzzled and annoyed.
Well, that was fascinating.
Should ask for his mailing address.
What?
Should have asked for his mailing address so you can keep asking him questions.
Send a message.
I know his name!
So, did he say, I can't remember, was it Fiona or Ziara that has been through it before?
Yes.
That we would... Yes? Because he only said me and one other person. Did he mean all three?
No, Ziara, sorry.
Ziara, okay. Do you have any idea what he was talking about, Ziara?
Nope. Can try and think about it again, but I don't necessarily want another headache right now. I can ponder about it again later.
Would that be to try to figure that out?
That would be a history check.
History. Okay.
I've had too many headaches on this already.
4.
As you start...
Yeah, I don't...
Yeah, as you start pondering back on it and, like, what the heck is he talking about? What does he mean I've been through this before? As you trying to, like, dig into your memory to bring up anything that would possibly fit what he seems to be trying to say, your head just starts hurting. Again, the migraine feeling of back of your neck starts to tense up, and it starts creeping up your head into your scalp and around your side of your head, and you're just like, oh.
Told you, headaches.
Yeah. You know, I'm getting really sick of this not being able to remember things.
Yeah, I'll think on it later, maybe right before bed, so if I get a headache, I can just go to sleep.
Sounds like a good plan. Hey, what if we make sure that those headaches aren't as bad by imbibing?
Charging, but not charging.
Well,
Maybe
but-
just
but-
something loose.
I still want to go talk to the
Sure, the 2 connector middle pieces are.
the father suggested talking to the traveler, the head of the
Right.
travelers.
We should probably not be drunk when we talk to a matron mother.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Will it reach over there?
Right.
So
We should probably do that first.
Word.
Should probably grab the boys.
They have proceeded to wander towards the two of you. Or the two of you, towards the three of you. Yeah.
On our walk, I turn to Dareth and I go, do you know anything of vampires? Do they have magical abilities or spells?
Jareth?
John?
Are you asking me about dragons or vampires?
I'm asking you if you have any history of knowing anything about vampires and seeing if they have any spells that you might know of if you do.
I have no idea. That probably. I find it very unlikely that I would. Like,
I mean, you're
I'm
an
a young
outlander.
guy. I've only been an outlander, and I don't think I've had much dealing with vampires or anything else that's powerful. Otherwise, I'd be dead.
Fair.
Okay.
Sorry, I've been trying to figure out if I actually have a third language or not, but I don't think I do.
It's good enough.
All right. So your groups have come back together. The 5 of you are now together again. So, do you wish to exchange information, or are you just going to go over to the traveling people's camp?
So I'll be
An
I'll be
interesting
like,
thing.
so I found me and him found an old man who had a crazy looking dagger, and I show him the dagger and a cool map about an area that might be an old kingdom that collapsed and the ruler turned into a vampire.
Huh. Ominous. We ran into an
Very.
old baby wizard, I don't know, old crazy guy, who was selling stuff and gave us a piece of metal that may or may not have a coat of arms on it and said it would help take us somewhere. And that we'd need it at some point. And
Quest
possibly
item.
that
Nice.
these two have already gone through something. And we're gonna do it.
Apparently.
So we'll see what we're doing again. Ominous.
Okay.
So I vote
I'm really being confused.
yes.
What was that, Shayla?
I vote matron. We go talk to the traveling mother of the traveling people and see if there's some guidance we can get from that.
Yep. And if she can tell if we have been affected by some sort of spell or
Yeah,
curse.
Also, if she knows of any monocles that can show you things about people, because I'm 90% sure that he looked at you guys with the monocle before he said that you'd been through it before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also have a sneaking suspicion he's not of this plane.
I mean, yeah. I mean, gold dragons run around, apparently, sometimes as paladins, right? So, let's just hope he's beneficial? Beneficent? There's a word for that. But I don't have it.
All right.
Magnanimous. That's not the word.
That was completely different than what you were trying. What even?
I say we go talk to this lady, get more information from her, and then we go and spill all the details that we can remember of our encounters at the tavern.
Agreed.
Okay.
And
Need a stiff drink.
if the father has anything this evening, and if not, then in the morning, I am also raiding the library. That's my plan, because that sounds good.
Okay. So,
Coat of arms.
you guys start making your way out of the town. As you go through the main gates, the guards at the gates nod to you. You've been here for a while. They know who you are. They know that you've been bringing back wolves. So they let you out. And it's not that far to the traveling people's camp. There's a few of them making their way back and forth from the camp right now. But it's obvious that they've already started their own cook fires. They've got some stuff going on. People are there. And as you're approaching them, you hear the sounds of flutes and fiddles playing. And it sounds quite festive.
Okay.
Maybe we don't have to go to a tavern tonight.
Maybe we can get the matron drunk.
I have nothing on me.
As you guys approach the wagons, from out of the shadows of one of the wagons, one of the traveling folk, a younger man, stands up, reveals himself, and holds up his hand and goes, "Hail!
High-five him.
What business do you have in the wagons?"
Um, we came with hopes for help. I was
Guidance.
speaking guidance, perhaps is a better word. We've encountered some strangeness, and we're hoping that perhaps your matron might be able to give us some guidance. We hear that she's very wise, and she might be able to aid us.
Divine what's wrong?
He snorts at your terrible use of puns. And looks back behind his shoulder and goes, yeah, she's probably available. Follow me. And he leads you into this camp. There are a number of wagons set up. There's a few tents pitched, covering like cook fires or places for people to sit. And the people are running, like there's children running around playing games. There's adults cooking. There's a few of the older people playing instruments. It's very, very homey, and like these people don't have a care in the world. And near the center of this whole like ring of wagons, there is a slightly larger wagon with a very old woman sitting there, like short, old, hag-like woman sitting on the steps. And as you approach, she smiles at all of you, showing that she has some very crooked teeth, but that she seems pleasant enough. And she looks at all of you in turn and goes, my children, what brings you here to our humble camp this night?
We've experienced some strangeness, and we came for some guidance or divination. We all experienced a strange group hallucination, which we may have experienced previously but could not remember. And we hoped that you might be able to tell if there may be some remnants on us, to tell if this might be some sort of spell or curse. We asked our local priest, and he suggested that you might be able to help us.
She nods a couple of times and says, I may be able to help. She looks at the wagon door behind her and says, please, come into the wagon. There is, She looks around at the camp and everyone playing. She goes, this is too bright of a place to talk about dark things like curses and spells. Please, come in. She stands up, kind of creaky, rickety, grabs a cane from next to her, uses it to mount the last couple of steps, opens the door into this sealed wagon, and motions you to follow her with her cane. Come. And enters into the wagon.
I'm following.
Everybody else gonna follow as well?
Yes.
Is it even big enough for all of us?
You can go to the steps and find out.
I'll peek my head in. I'm kind of big.
Yes. So, as you initially enter into the wagon, it doesn't look like it's going to be able to hold all 6 people and whatever's already in there. But as she goes in and Brenna, Zahara, is the first one to follow her through, you see that place is a lot bigger on the inside than it is the outside. Like, what looks like a, at best, 5x10 wagon is actually closer to 30x30. And that the front half is split off by a curtain. And behind the curtain, you can see a small living area, but the front half has chairs and a small table in the front with a velvet table runner draped across it. And she sits behind the table and motions each of you to take a chair as you look inside the door.
I duck in.
I'll sit fairly close to her, like near her.
All right. So she's on the other side of the
It's
table.
bigger on the inside?
She nods. She smiles at you and says, so many magics are simple to the people who know how to do them.
Old lady got a nice place.
She smiles and nods to you and thanks. As you guys sit down, she flicks a finger, and around the room, several lamps with red glass shades light up, lighting the room in kind of a red glow.
Man, everybody's a sorcerer.
Everybody can do basic cantrips, it seems like. And she looks at each of you in turn and motions you to sit, and she says, "Please, tell me what it is that you experience, what it is that you're looking for. Perhaps I can help. And if not, perhaps I can point you to someone who can."
I sit down a little heavily as the memory hits me again. Well, we descended in creepy coffin-like things, like tens of hundreds of feet down into the earth. At the time, having no memory of each other, but all of us were there. And then when we were let out, it was onto a ledge that led into a tunnel that looked like it had been carved out by a giant drill, but also had some runes and stuff in plates and areas as if it was labeled. The hole that we were dropped down went farther down, but we were on that ledge, and we went inside.
All are wearing masks.
Yeah.
All the while not having a memory of each other.
Or ourselves.
And when we got inside, we slowly found a pedestal with a light on it and rooms around it that with similar, looked like it had been drilled out with a giant drill. And each room kind of had massive caverns with glowing crystals the size of houses inside of them, as well as varying boxes and stuff. Our Jareth here grabbed and activated the light on the pedestal, and it gave us a map of apparently one level of a multi-level dungeon.
One box had body parts in it.
Yeah. And for some reason, when that one was open, one of the crystals lit up with, like, an elf writing notes about something. And another box got opened, and we saw someone muttering about the master. As we kept going through the cave, we found the dead body of a dragon and a vault door behind which there was electricity sparking.
Real quick, I feel like I should add that we had these weird masks on, and there was like lights that went across it saying that there was an objective to get this weird device called a microwave detector. I still can't figure out what that is.
Yeah, and at some point I remembered that we had all done this before.
Oh, yeah.
You don't know this lady. Why are we telling her all this?
Because she asked us to tell her.
She's helping us figure out why or who.
As many exact details as possible. Because otherwise you're getting something vague back in return. I think that's how divination works, right? I like confirm next to me. I like just kind of like whisper to Grizz. No, in character to Grizz is like, that's how divination works, right?
Okay.
Yes, we're just more trusting than you are, Dragon. Like, me.
Okay.
But
my character is definitely all about not trusting others very easily and making sure you guys aren't doing something dumb. So I'm just checking.
I don't trust strangers much.
We may be doing something dumb, but roll with it.
All right, we're rolling with this. So,
it's like,
yeah.
Continue, Shayla.
Fought another monster. Like a face that just like opened. Went through a few.
I wouldn't say we
rooms.
fought it. We ran away.
We ran quickly from a monster with an open face and a lot of teeth. And locked the door behind us because that was great. And went for tried to find the objective. And we woke up.
Mm-hmm. I saw some sort of brooch that seemed familiar. Not sure what it was. It disappeared, and I was told it was not yet time for it. And was teased about it.
I'm kind of scared we're gonna go back there, and I'm not gonna remember.
Yeah, but we woke up having just sat down for dinner, and we had been to dinner for just a couple minutes, and we woke up back at the table.
She nods.
It was strange, and it was odd, and we were all just sitting there to a fresh dinner in front of us.
We're looking to see if we can figure out the who or the why, or at least a what caused that.
And we were sitting at a dinner in our monastery, in sanctified ground. Like, don't know why or what or how.
She nods. She nods. She looks at you, and then she looks at the group of you and goes, "Would you like some tea?"
Tea sounds wonderful.
I am absolutely parched. That would be lovely.
She nods. She picks up her cane, steps around the table, and goes behind the curtain. You hear her clattering around for a moment, and then she comes back with a pot and a number of cups equal to the amount of people in the room, including herself. Sits the tea set down, and then carefully takes some brain fart. Sorry. She carefully sets it down and then proceeds to put a teacup in front of each of you. And she begins to pour one at a time, looking at each of you as she does so, not looking at what she's doing. And she starts with Jareth. Even though you're not on the side or the first person that would seem obvious to do so, she pours for you first. Then she's making eye
Thank you
contact.
very much for the tea.
She nods. You're welcome. She then moves over, again, not to the next person in line, over to Zahra, and does the same thing. Ziara, thank you. Sorry. Does the same thing.
Like Sierra, but with a Z.
Then she moves over to Fiona, Shayla's character. Proceeds to pour, looking you in the eye. Then moves over to your character, Courtney. Remind me her name?
Sakara,
thank you. I'm sorry. I'm getting there, guys. I promise. Sakara. And then finishes with Colton, your character's name is Durst? No. Grizz. I will get there. Okay.
I respond back to the lady. I'll accept your tea. But do you have any ale after this?
She smiles and says, "When our business is concluded, you can help yourself to the ale that my family has amongst the wagons. We would be glad to have you spend some time this evening with us." As she then proceeds to pour herself a cup, she doesn't look at any of you. She instead kind of stares into the cup as she's pouring it, and then as she finishes, she puts the pot back down and picks up her cup of tea, puts it in front of her, and then takes a small sip, puts it back down, and says, "You have such a fascinating tale that you tell. Tell me, I have a few questions that I wish to ask concerning this incident, if you would be so kind as to answer them."
If we can, if I can, I cannot speak for others.
She nods. She kind of looks at all of you and addresses all of you. Was there any mists involved in any of the things that you saw?
We were told a little bit about them, but
believe the canyon for which we first entered had mists in the distance, but I don't believe once we landed there was mists.
Pretty sure we started dangling. I'm pretty sure we started dangling in a thing in some glass coffins, and then the glass coffins opened and we were falling or whatever. I don't think there was any mist, and I don't think we ever saw anywhere outside of that huge tunnel thing we started in, the shaft.
Well, you may not have.
The only mists I remember are like the mist cloud that had electricity.
Okay. I mean, again, if that's what you guys remember, that's what you can tell her. That's totally fine.
I think the second to the last room had mists in it. The spooky one where you found the brooch.
Yeah, when I remembered when
the last room we were in.
You remember the item for which I saw and it disappeared and I was teased about it. When I picked it up, mist appeared and the room was filled with mist that we almost couldn't see through.
She nods.
And that's when it disappeared and a voice spoke to me and said, "It's not time yet," or "This isn't yours yet."
All right. While you were in this place, did you see any people that you could describe in detail? Whether they be in the visions or elsewhere?
Creepy ass monster, dude.
There was an old elf, always muttering and talking about things.
Writing down
The one on the crystal, yeah.
Yeah, just the guy writing notes from the box.
Brownish
Projection.
skin, pointed ears, black hair. Sitting.
There was not really any living beings that we saw.
She takes another sip of her tea and says, "Describe the brooch that you saw, if you may."
Star-shaped, brass in color, I believe, and had a ruby in the middle.
Mm-hmm. She nods. She looks at all of you and says, "There is remnants of some sort of spell surrounding you. But spell might be too specific a term for what I see around you at the moment. All weavings of the weave leave trace residues to those of us who know how to divine them. Spells have a very specific shape, a structure. They're almost like someone who wove a rug, and then the rug was torn in half. You can still see the rug, but it's no longer a rug. That's how most spells after they're used are seen. What I see around you is threads. Maybe ropes. Something that's part of something much larger, but is no longer clearly defined and woven the way a spell would be. Something did affect you. I can say that for certain. What affected you? I unfortunately cannot say.
But it doesn't appear to be a spell, per se?
Not per
Like
se.
some
no.
weaving of magic still?
Yes. Anything that produces power usually needs to touch the weave in order to create it, but spells are much more codified, I suppose you would say. There's a structure there. What happened to you did not have the same structure as a spell. It was something more...
Like a curse?
So an ancient curse or
She shakes her head.
something.
No, not per se a curse. A curse also behaves like a spell. They have a structure. What you didn't have a structure. I've seen the divine have effects like this in the past, but that was long, long ago. So it's
Have an
unclear what
intent.
affected you.
Can you tell if it had intent behind it?
Oh, there was definitely intent. All magic needs intent, my dear.
Okay. Fair enough.
What about, like,
Teacup.
have you seen workings of
Tea,
other
nice tea.
planar beings do things like this?
Other planar beings, like devils and
Like,
angels?
yeah, devils, angels, they...
Vampiric.
She cocks an eyebrow at Grist. Why would you ask if a vampire could do this?
We came along an old lad earlier today who talked about a kingdom who the leader may have became a vampire.
She smiles and chuckles and she says, "Oh, you know he told you that story." No, I have yet to meet a vampire that could produce that kind of effect that what you're talking about here. As far as other entities of the greater planes, I mean, yes, I suppose an angel or a devil of sufficient power and rank in their structures could have done what I'm seeing has been done to you, but why would be a much better question than who at this point. Why did this happen to you? Is probably more important than who did it.
I'm so sorry.
Shayla, your mic sensitivity is not that high.
She just kind of like puts her teacup over his like, I'm so sorry, but do you have some more tea?
She smiles and goes, "Yes, dear, of course," and then proceeds to pour you another cup.
Is
We
there-
may have encountered a strange being who gave us some interesting and gave me some other planar sort of like heebie-jeebies.
Freaky vibes.
Yeah, hence my other planar question. You wouldn't happen to be familiar with an individual named
Prospero.
Prospero?
She cocks her head at you and goes, "That is a very strange name. But no?"
I immediately thought of Gladiator when you said that.
Okay.
You say he told us that story. Are there other stories you may know of the ancient castle on the hill?
Oh, definitely. That is integral to my people's history.
Would you be willing to share with us?
She looks at you guys for a moment and says, "I must give you a warning first. These stories are not for the faint of heart. And every story, when spoken, does have consequences."
You know, it's been a good night. Thank you for the tea.
Fiona, before you like start heading out, that piece of armor that you received, would you be interested in having her look at her?
Well, at the same time, maybe she knows something about our doctor there, Jareth.
She might.
Yeah.
Fiona goes for her bag and pulls out the piece of metal and is like, just like death grip on it and is like, yeah, he gave us this and said we'll need it.
I mean, I'm not
Also, we
necessarily
need a
saying to get
compass.
rid of it, but just because he didn't give us a whole lot of information on it, and I still am very curious.
She looks
he
at the
seemed
piece of
trustworthy
metal,
to me.
looks back at Fiona, and says, "I would suggest putting that away, my dear."
That's what I thought. Okay, cool. I just like, put it back in my bag and I'm like,
She looks over at Jareth and says, "I am willing to examine whatever artifact you seem to have."
Old man who gave me the map and told me a story about the vampire king he had this dagger, and I pull out the dagger and show her the pommel.
She looks at the dagger and smiles, the kind of smile you would give to an old friend you haven't seen in a long time, and goes, "Ah, yes, I know this one. I take it that you intend to go to where he found this."
At some point, yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
She nods. "I will offer you this, all of you. If you so desire, my caravan leaves tomorrow morning. We are going up the mountain. You may travel with us to where we go. You may even stay here tonight if you wish to leave with us bright and early in the morning. It is entirely up to you. But the offer
I have a
stands."
library I need to look at, but appreciated.
We do need to go and convene with the father of the monastery before we are able to
Gotta
leave.
check with the old man up the hill.
I mean,
yes,
only a couple of us need to go with them to the monastery. Some of us could stay here.
I will be one of the ones going to the monastery.
She nods.
I'd be going to the hill.
Vampires?
She smiles. "There are no vampires in my camp, my dear, I promise."
Oh, it's not your camp I'm worried about. It's the fact that they want to hear all of the vampire stories.
she laughs. "Fair enough. They're not for the faint of heart. If some of you would like to stay, and if you would like to come with us in the morning, you may. As far as the information that I have, that dagger you have there, my young friend, is very old. It honestly looks like a relic from my people's past. We had a problem with werewolves in our distant past, and that's what those symbols on there represent." She even looks at the dagger and goes, "I would even say that that blade is probably made mostly of silver, even though it looks like steel. Could be useful in your futures."
I appreciate that. Thank you.
"As far as your little piece of armor, my dear, please, unless you absolutely need to pull it out, keep it in your pack. It gives off the vibes of death and pain."
Ominous.
So that piece apparently is related to something that Ziara and I have both lived through, like, in the past that neither of us remember.
She looks at
Do you
both of
know exactly what that does?
If you would, I would be willing to read your palms and see what your fortunes say. That may shed some light on this.
Ooh, interesting.
She's curious now. She went, that was a full 180. I am scared, I want to leave. Oh, palm readings. I want to stay now. Are you okay?
No! No, I'm not. But the future's interesting, and I'd very much like to live.
Come on.
She holds out both of her gnarled hands at both of you. Which one of you would like to go first?
Sure.
She smiles and says, "If you do not wish me to, my dear, I do not have to."
More information is better.
She nods.
I'll go first if you want me to.
No, it's fine.
All right.
Alright, so she takes your palm in between her two hands and looks at it. Takes a moment to kind of stare at your palms, takes one of her hands, and then starts tracing the lines on your palm. Looking at them. After a moment, she smiles and looks up at you and says, "My dear, you are a valiant soul. But you have been through much in the eons."
Right now.
Your palm says that you are one of those who
No, it's not confident.
Their form of progression and rest is to continue fighting. Where some of us, when we leave this mortal coil, go to a place of peace and rest, or eternal torment, depending on how you lived, or what you worshipped, and what you think paradise is, you're one of those people that when death comes for you, he gives you the opportunity to do it again. You may have been through something like this before in a life beyond this one. That's what your palm says.
I'll go next.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. No. Me.
She smiles and goes, a Leonin paw. It has been a while since I've had to read one of your species. She smiles, takes it.
Seen one, so
She asks, would you please extend your claws for me? It makes the reading easier.
okay.
He's
You're
here
sharp.
heroing.
It's not my fault.
Oh, don't worry, my dear. I have plenty of bandages in the car. She begins doing the same thing that she did to Zahara. And Ziara. Sorry,
Yes.
I'm getting there, guys. I'm
Like
getting there.
Tiara, but with a Z.
Yeah. So she does the same thing. She traces it, only you don't necessarily have lines in your palm because you're obviously a cat person, right?
Creases, slight little creases.
Yeah, your hand resembles more of a cat's pad than it does a human hand in the way that the fine detail functions.
Toe beans.
Ayla and her toe beans.
So she examines your hand for a moment, and it takes a little bit longer. Then eventually she says, "This is fascinating, my dear. It seems your adventure never really came to completion. That when death came for you, under whatever circumstances that he did, you demanded a chance to return and finish what you'd started? I don't know what it is that you demanded to finish, but that seems to be what your palm reading is saying, is that you're one of a strong will who just wanted to finish what was started there."
Why don't I remember this?
She shrugs. Often, when death takes us and grants us back to life, a veil is put between us and that which we remembered from before. Our soul still remembers, but our minds need more work to find those memories. It's not uncommon, but it is unusual.
Who needs that kind of help?
Point at Ziara.
Oh.
I don't know what else to tell you. I
I
hope this
didn't hear
helps.
that last sentence.
What?
I didn't hear your last sentence. He was yelling in my ear.
She's basically telling you that sometimes when you come back, there's a block between your soul and your mind, and that it takes work to get through it.
Your soul remembers more than your mind remembers.
Mm-hmm.
And I pointed that Ziara needs more of the mind help because she keeps trying to remember stuff but can't remember nothing.
All the headaches. So many headaches.
We need more red.
She smiles at all of you and says, "I hope this helps. If I can provide more information, I will. But it sounds like several of you wish to return to the monastery."
Oh, it's not long term. Just gotta talk to old man, see if he has anything to say about the dagger too.
She nods. Fair enough.
feel like we may be joining you on your caravan tomorrow. We will talk more amongst ourselves as a group before that decision is complete. But
It's
I
a most
believe
generous
it would be-
offer, and we will probably take you up on it. Just give us a little bit of time to finalize our stuff here.
She smiles. Yes, of course. We will be leaving about at first light tomorrow morning. So, if you wish to come with us, be here then. Until then,
Will you be on your way out of town? Will you be passing by the monastery, or heading in the opposite direction?
we are heading up the mountain, my dear.
My proprioception is horrible. I don't know which direction that is.
So
in
the
relation to
monastery is in the middle of
monastery.
town, so they'll be heading out to the west. The town is technically
west.
east of where they're camped at the moment.
So opposite.
Yes.
Okay. So if we want to catch them, we gotta be with them before they head out.
Mm-hmm.
Or just come back. Yeah, or just come back.
I mean,
Yes.
that is the same thing. She just said that.
But the father may not be done researching
It doesn't
for
hurt to go
tomorrow
check.
morning.
To the monastery, says I.
the father may not be done researching, but we can get what he has now.
And I will
Go up the
be in
hill,
the library all night.
explore, and when/if we make it back, we can figure out what else he discovers.
Yep. Okay.
I'm
Fiona likes her
heading
tea.
to the monastery. Who's coming with me? Who's staying?
I mean,
where?
I'm going to go up to the monastery too.
I think everybody's going up to the monastery, right?
I believe so.
All right.
No, Brenna has unanswered questions, and so do I.
Go get some questions answered and stuff.
So
I
you,
just dropped a tiny dice, so I'm going to be under my desk looking for
Actually,
tiny dice.
I believe that I can catch up on what people learned from the monastery later.
Mhm.
I may stick around and see what others around here might know of what we might see come tomorrow.
Okay.
And as we go up the hill and whatnot.
Fair enough.
Okay.
They can do that.
You can ask them whether or not they've been that way before.
True.
Agreed.
Okay. Cool. So,
You okay, Brenna?
gonna split the party.
I dropped tiny dice. I'm looking for the tiny dice.
Okay.
For tiny dice.
Okay.
Tiny.
Nice.
Tiny dice.
You know, I didn't realize you got on the floor, so when you're just like
You'll
talking all quiet, I look up and you're on the ground.
Tiny dice.
Tiny dice.
But am I the only one staying around the caravans and stuff to talk, or is everyone else going to the monastery?
It seems like you're the only one staying.
I'm completely fine with being the only one.
I believe
just
you are.
anything else.
Drink
Stick with
extra ale
Fiona.
for us.
I feel safe with Fiona.
I just want to figure out what everyone else. What was that, Brenna?
I believe you are. Drink extra ale for us.
Yes.
Got you. I will try to remember all the details. Bye.
I quietly slip him like a piece of paper and some charcoal, and I'm like, just take some.
Just take notes. Take notes, please. Okay. So we're going to go with. You guys are starting up the trail towards the monastery, and while they do, Grist is able to peruse around the camp. So as soon as you guys exit the matron's wagon, the rest of you leave. She motions you, Grist, over to one of the fires and says, "Please have some soup, have some ale, talk with the people. You're welcome here." And then she proceeds to kind of wander off into the wagons.
So I walk around. Is there any what are all the races that are mixed around the fire in the caravan?
So most of these people look human, but you do see scattered amongst them a couple halflings, someone who is clearly of orc descent. Whether they're a pureblood orc or not is hard to tell. You see a couple people who are clearly of elvish descent, and one or two people who have like really red and really blue skin, but look human otherwise. It's hard to identify what exactly they are.
So the halflings, do they speak Dwarvish?
Doesn't hurt to try. They're speaking in halfling right now.
Well, I'd like to walk up to them and see if they understand Dwarvish and see if that earns me any trust or bring in this guy to the group. Respect there.
So you find them sitting around a little pot on a campfire where they're clearly cooking something, and they're talking to each other, chattering back and forth in halfling. As you walk up and give a dwarven greeting, they all kind of turn to you and go, "Hey!" Dwarvish, and lift up mugs.
I respond with the same greeting. How are ya? Presuming at this point I've received a mug of ale or something.
Yeah, you can pick it up by this point.
And I clash it against theirs, and I sit down at a stump to start talking to them.
Yeah. So you clank, and they all switch over into a dwarven dialect. It's slightly different than the one you know, but it's still dwarvish. It's just instead of sounding like boulders tumbling down the side of a mountain, it sounds like gravel sliding down the side of a mountain.
Which would be fair.
They all kind of look at you and go, "Hey, well, yeah, man, what's up? What's up? You want some soup? We got some more ale." And one of them pulls out a bottle. "I got whiskey." I got
whiskey.
He looks at you and he goes, "I got triple distilled. This stuff is the good stuff. This will knock you on your butt. I don't care where you're from. I got this out of one of the dwarven lords a few months back."
You got a ladle for the soup that has holes in it, and then when you put the soup mix-ins in, mix it with the whiskey, please.
He looks at you and goes, okay, yeah.
You want whiskey in your soup?
Yes.
You want whiskey soup?
I'm a dwarf. Leave me be.
Yeah, so
we work hard.
They take it and they're like, okay. The soup should be done in a few minutes. Where are you from? What do you got? Where are you from? What are you doing? What brings you here? They're chattering fast. Think fast talking New York. That's kind of what these guys sound like in Dwarvish.
I bring up a little bit that I'm from the Undercommon area, a little bit more dark Dwarvish background. Kind of not try to go too much into my personal detail because I do keep that one generally to myself.
Yeah.
But reveal enough about me to where they start getting a little bit more trusting around me, and bring up where their travel's taking them. I hear they're heading out towards where we're viewing on going tomorrow, and see if they've heard anything around that area or been to that area prior.
One of them whistles softly when they talk about it. They go, "Oh yeah, no, we've been up there. But the one you want to talk to, if you want stories out of that, I got the man for you." One of them goes, and then they motion towards somebody else at another fire, and you see another halfling stand up, kind of wander over to him. This one, halflings are all kind of a little portly, whatnot. This guy looks a little more haggard, a little more down. His eyes are a little more sunken than the rest of them. But he sits down on a log across from you, and they're like, "Hey, yeah, no, this guy wants to know about the valley up the mountain." And he looks at you and goes, "Really? What do you want to know? You want the old stories, or what are you looking for? What are you looking for?
Well, I've heard of a few different items found up there that are fairly interesting. A dagger with a couple wolves on the pommel that seems to be fairly special. Also, the older stories and what might have seemed to make this area type of cursed, more like watch out about going up there type deal. Would like to hear more about that too.
He grins and says, "All right, but I gotta warn you, everybody who has sits at the fire's gotta provide something for the fire." He then pulls out a
You ain't got shit.
he pulls out a seasoning packet from his pouch and kind of pours some looks like rock salt and maybe some herbs into the soup, and then starts stirring it in. What do you got to add to the fire before we tell you the story and feed you some soup? The other ones just kind of snicker.
Give me a second. I'm looking at what I got in my bags.
Totally fine.
Whatnot. I pull out my lute and I play a song.
Okay, cool. So you're gonna perform something for them.
Yes.
Okay.
That would be my contribution to this quote-unquote fire, which is what is asked of me.
Yeah. All right, so roll a performance check. Let's see how well you do.
See.
Number, the plus number.
10.
10? Okay, average. So obviously they put you on the spot, and you weren't exactly expecting this. So you give a fairly average performance. They clap appreciatively, and one of the halflings starts serving out the soup. He does what you says and prepares yours the way you wanted it, and he hands it to you. And as soon as the soup's been passed around, and the halfling they called over takes a sip, he smiles, goes, refreshing, and then proceeds to pull the kettle off of the fire. It's on like a swiveling tripod, and he pulls it away from the fire so that the fire is now fully exposed. It doesn't have anything over it. And he says, "All right, let me tell you a story." And he again reaches into his like shirt and pulls out another pouch. This one's different than the last one. And he reaches in, grabs a little pinch of dust, and throws it into the fire. Immediately, the fire turns green, kind of expands slightly, and he says, "Long ago, before some of the great dwarven holds were even made, there was a place high in the mountains that was far and away from those who would seek to claim and abuse it. It was a beautiful place. And as he's talking, you start to see in the flames rolling green hills, pine trees, herds of stag and deer. And he says, this was a beautiful place. And amongst that place, a group of wizards came. They had with them the dark remains of things long since destroyed, of evil in nature. And they built themselves a temple to defend those things and keep them from the hands of those who would abuse them. And you see this soaring citadel high in the mountains surrounded by snow and the fire. And you can feel as if the very warmth around you is being reached back into the fire. It's so cold. He says they stood there for generations defending this place until eventually they succumbed to their own devices and fell. But the darkness remained up there, and yet the valley was still beautiful. And it was still a place of peace, even though an evil lurked above them. The people who eventually settled there didn't know that. And so they lived blissfully ignorant of the evils around them. Till one day, A noble dragon showed up to the valley, hunting a foe that had escaped him. Upon vanquishing the foe in the valley's depths, and again the scene changes and you see a swamp where what is clearly some sort of dragon is breathing fire and burning down some sort of dark amorphous blob in the fire, and it seems to consume it. And then it says, as soon as this enemy was vanquished, it knew that there was something else here, that its enemy had been coming for something, drawn to something. And upon finding the ancient temple and what lied within, it decided that no, here was a place where it would stay. It would bring its horde, it would bring its followers, it would stay in this valley and protect this valley and its peaceful place against the evil above and evils that might come seeking that power. So it was for centuries, peace and prosperity reigned, and the world moved on, ignoring this place. Till one day, he came. And in this point, the fire seems to spring up a bit, and a very distinctly humanoid creature on the back of a horse, riding hard at the head of a vast host, is seen marching into the valley. He didn't want power. Not then. He wasn't evil. Not then. But he overthrew the dragon and slew him because he wanted the valley for himself. He saw its beauty and coveted it. And that was the beginning of his downfall. This creature, this man, was something that lusted for beauty. But he could never quite satisfy that lust. And eventually, it shows the fire springs up again, and you see this man walking into the temple. That lust consumed him. The man comes out, but he's not the same. Something's different. You can't tell what's different in the fire, but something's different. And it destroyed him and the valley. You see a castle rise up. You see people being tortured. And then, eventually, the castle falls, and everything fades away. The valley's now just there, cursed, waiting for somebody to cleanse it, as they say. A few people still live there. A few people still remember its beauty. It's just not what it was. It's just not what it was. And then the fire slowly fades, and then flickers out, and then comes back as a normal fire. Halfling smiles at you and says, "But that's just a story. Who knows if it's true?" And he shrugs.
Well, are there still the locals, or is a few people that you still live up there that know the old beautiful days?
Oh yeah, no, there's still a village up there. Unnamed as it is, yeah. They still claim that that's the story. He shrugs.
So that's what they believe is still true?
Yeah. Though nobody's seen this dark temple they talk about, at least not that I'm aware of. Though there is definitely a place where an old castle lived, and a place in a swamp where clearly a dragon went at one point, because the fire still burns in a couple of places. It's kind of hard to stop dragon fire once it really gets started. But other than that, no one's really sure if that story's true or not.
Well, I appreciate your time and story there. Can I get you anything for compensation?
He shrugs. Goes, nah, I think I'm good right now. He just smiles and says, "Join the conversation. Talk with us. That's enough compensation, I think." And he begins to eat some more of his soup. And so they start talking about more mundane things at that point. So that's where we'll leave you, Colton. And we will switch back to everybody else. So you guys make it back into town. Are you going to stop in the market on your way, or are you just going to go straight up to the monastery?
Well, it might be worth. So, just to try and clarify, the gypsy people, they were on the far side of the town from the monastery, in the area between the town and the forest.
Yes.
So we gotta go back. So we either walk around the town, or we walk through the town to get back towards the monastery.
You have to go through the town to get to the monastery. There's no way to get to the monastery without going through the town.
Monastery's in the middle.
Okay.
Monastery's in the middle. Just don't use gypsy. That's actually a slur. Just,
Okay.
and I know it's the common one, but that's basically the N word in Europe.
Fair enough. All right. So it might be worth stopping by the marketplace. There's a good chance everybody's packed up and gone home because what? I'm assuming it's dark now.
Yes, it's gotten dark. You can see that there are people definitely in the tavern, and whatnot. But for the most part, the stalls have closed up. The shops have closed up. People have gone home.
I mean, I wasn't really intending on staying at the town. I was primarily intending on just heading straight to the monastery.
Okay. To the library.
Actually, breaking up so bad.
Okay, so you guys make your trek back up to the monastery. You get inside and you find yourselves in the training courtyard. So your rooms have been over by where the library is. So going to your rooms would take you basically by the library.
I mean, I was gonna try and find the father and just check in with him.
Okay.
I would assume he would probably be in the library or in his rooms, so I'd probably check the library first.
Okay.
I'm with her at the library.
Okay. The other two, you gonna go with them as well?
Yeah, library.
I'm just following.
You can take a paintbrush and paint the really low valleys,
Okay.
or just paint the tall valleys.
So you guys make your way into the monastery, into the section where the library is. There's two different doors. There's a staircase on the outside that leads up to the upper floor where the rooms are, and then the lower floor is where the library is. So you guys go through the doors into the library, and it's pretty dark in here. They don't really keep lit lamps in there for obvious reasons. But there's a place near the door where you can pick up lanterns in order to light them and go through. You can see further back, though, that there's appear to be some lights of people studying, so you have a place to
I'm
start.
surprised with everybody else. I'm surprised with everybody else using cantrips so often with so much stuff. Nobody's using a light cantrip.
Not
don't
everybody
have
can
a
use
light
magic,
cantrip.
but plenty of people can.
I'll just use light cantrip on my chainmail and just light myself up.
All right, you are now a bright beacon of light.
And I follow with the lantern.
Okay. As you guys are starting into the library, you hear a scuttling above you.
Yeah.
And then off of one of the shelves, a reptilian head kind of sticks around a corner and goes, "Hey."
Hey.
Guys need something? And a small dragon creature kind of comes around the corner.
Have we ever encountered that person there, considering we've been staying at the monastery for a little bit?
If you've been in the library, you would have met this this little guy. Yeah. If you've been in the library, you know that the quote-unquote librarian is a lantern dragonette. That this little guy takes care of any mice and rat problems and also makes sure that the wax gets cleaned up and that people are practicing fire safety.
I will respond and say I was looking for Father McCahey.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, he's back here. Follow me. It just kind of jumps off of the shelf it's on. It's about the size of a small house cat. And its chest starts to glow. Huh?
And his name must be Mushu.
It's not Bushu. So he's about the size of a small house cat, and then he just flies off, his chest starts to glow, and he just starts gliding down the stacks. And you just see it stick its head over the back of its neck and goes, come on, hurry, follow.
Following after him.
Let's go.
All right. So it leads you back into the stacks a little bit, turns a corner on one of the stacks, and leads you to an area where there's a table set up for people to research. And the father is sitting there, and the little dragon lands gracefully on the table and says, "Hey, some of the wolf hunter guys are here. They want to talk to you. Got any wax?" The father just pulls out a tiny stick of wax and hands it to him. And he's like, "Ooh, yeah," and then flies off.
Very cute.
Oh my gosh, I'm having flashbacks of the mango bat. Okay.
All right. So you guys are there, and the father looks up at you and goes, "Oh, you're back much sooner than I was expecting. Did you go to the traveling people and talk to their matron?"
Did, and you were right. She confirmed that it seemed to be more like divine magic, not a spell per se.
Concerning.
So, yeah, I know. We also met a strange gentleman in the market who also seemed to say that we were headed off on some spooky adventures, so that's comforting.
He just kind of shrugs and shakes his head. A lot of weird people come through town.
Yeah.
Well, in relation to the subject you asked me about, he pulls a dusty, old, leather-bound tome out of the pile in front of him. I did find something. I will warn you, it's not good.
Well, we've been told about vampires at this point, so...
Oh, okay, so you've heard that story already, I see.
Yeah. One of them.
Why does everyone know that story? Except for us.
Well, my dear, you are not exactly from this, natively to this region. This is the ghost stories we tell our children here.
I have a quick question, not a character.
Yeah, what's up?
So, for everyone else, as a player, say I'm not part of this story, so I'm not hearing everything that's going on, or y'all weren't necessarily hearing what was going on with me in the caravan.
Yeah.
If something happens later that I may not be thinking about the caravan, but somebody wants to be like, hey, like they put their hand to their head, hey, Colton, think about that time.
Yeah.
Is that necessarily bad? Like, does everyone want that help, or is that like bad juju to insinuate that help? I just want to hear everybody else's like opinion on this.
I would vote that it really depends on the situation. Like, if it's like something that we've directly talked about, or if we have like kind of vaguely brought it up but not specifically fully explained the other person's details, I feel like be as in character as possible. Granted, I am a heavy RP focused person. But like, if someone wants to do like a nudge of a like, hey, you remember the spooky thing? I don't have a personal per se objection to that, just as long as it like is more of a reminder that it was something that happened more than being like, you have to say this. More just kind of
be vague about it. Hey, you remember? Hey, try to remember this happened, or something like. And then maybe that character can sit there and ponder. But like with your hand on your head, be like, "Hey, John, remember spooky, and then like leave it at that, and maybe he thinks of something spooky that happened prior
Yeah.
that
And
his
it may
character
not
could then bring up.
And it may not even be the same spooky that each are thinking of, but as long as we're like trying to like get each other on the same train of thought vibes, same.
I just wanted to
topic is
fill
okay.
in myself on that because again, this is my first time playing, and I want to see how everyone like. I want to hear how John, Brenna, Courtney, all feels about this because I don't want to upset anybody by doing this, but I also would look like for me. I know there's some certain things like if I'm not actively taking notes, or if I just barely misplaced this one thing, if somebody brought my mind back to that, maybe I remember something that I didn't take a note on.
Yeah, and like some of us might be more active note takers than others, and like I know I try to like take brief notes on things that I'm not necessarily a part of, and make notes that I wasn't there, but just so we have a reference in case.
I just wanted to know how everyone sat on that, John.
I mean, I'm taking notes as we're going, so I have no problem with it out of character.
Okay. Ben? Okay. I just wanted to bring that up real quick because I would like everyone's opinion before I just jump in and try to do it and piss like all four of you off, and you're just like kick him out of the group, kill him. Like
rock balls, everybody dies.
That's totally fair.
To be fair, like I just want to be assured. So
yeah,
you guys can continue with your story. I just wanted to be clear. Cool.
Father.
Sorry, doing notes. Give me a second. There we go. Okay, cool. So, he looks at you guys and says, sit down. If you want to hear this story, I can tell you. It's a little involved. I'll be honest.
Okay.
He sighs and pats the tome a couple times and says, You seem to have heard something of the vampire story. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
A little bit.
Vampires, werewolves, big fight, abandoned kingdom, so on and so forth.
Okay. So some of the basics, but not necessarily the details. This happened a long time ago. Like, a really long time ago. He sighs and then flips the book open and spins around to show you a full-colored diagram of the brooch you saw. Brenna.
Shoot.
Oh, yep.
I was afraid of that. All right, well, he shuts the book and goes, what do you know about the Shadowfell?
What do I know about the Shadowfell? I don't know what I know about the Shadowfell. Would that be a history check?
History, religion.
I'm proficient in religion. 8.
8? Doesn't come up in your religion very often, apparently. You've heard of it.
I rolled a 5.
Can I roll?
I rolled a 5 plus 3, so 8.
17.
17. Alright, so you know a few things about the Shadowfell. The Shadowfell is the dark mirror, essentially, of the material plane. And it's one of those places that all the dark things either spawn from or go to. Some people view it as like... Huh?
Stranger Things, the Upside Down.
Basically. It's very similar to the Upside Down. In
Spoiler.
this context, it also sometimes
Spoiler.
operates as a prison.
Huh. Huh.
Uh,
Why
That's
the
what you know.
Shadowfell? Why the that place is like. Why would there be a physical object? But isn't that like the spooky prison plane? Like like our dark shadow realm, like the place opposite of a
He nods.
Okay.
Yes and no. There's a lot of nuance there whenever we're talking about a plane of existence other than our own, as there is with our own.
Fair.
The point I want to get at here is all the stories about the vampire and that fallen kingdom are true. It used to be here. Emphasis on used to be. The part, he pats the tome, again, that's not told often in our stories that we tell to our children, is that it was taken away. The Dark Vampire Lord was not defeated, I don't think, but was removed from our plane to the Shadowfell, as were a number of the artifacts of the kingdom, this being one of them. This artifact, according to the notes that we have here from the priests of the time, belonged to their clerical order that the vampire tried to eradicate, and was used to fight against him.
Okay.
John, out of character.
Holy relic.
You have a new artifact or relic that the father has not seen.
You are correct. Aware. Thank you.
So it's a holy relic that fights the vampire that got taken to the Shadowfell.
Yes, assuming that that is correct. This is an old text, this is an old tome, this is an old story. I am simply relaying the information that I happen to have here. This could all be false. I want to make that clear.
quick question, Father.
Yes.
Just a postulation. Our group hallucination, do you think it's possible that we were all transported to the Shadowfell?
Physically, no. Mentally, possibly.
And if the artifact that I saw there disappeared while we were in the Shadowfell, could it possibly be in this realm?
It's possible. The problem with the Shadowfell, there are a number of powerful entities that we know exist there. And they like to screw with people, and I do use that term intentionally.
Yeah, considering when it disappeared, it teased me and said it's not time yet. Yeah.
Exactly. It's very possible that what you saw there was simply a mental image of some part of the Shadowfell, and some power that exists there is taking an interest in your group for some reason. I don't know why, nor do I understand how they were able to penetrate the walls of the sanctuary here while you were here.
Okay, cool.
So
Continue.
along those lines, if our minds were transported there, would that time is different there, like reacts differently. So a couple minutes here could it be a couple hours there?
Arguably, yes. For most of the planes, as my studies have taken it, that is usually how it ends up working. Time is not equivalent across the planes or even across the same realm. There is a spell, for example, that I know certain clerics can access called Shadow Walking, which allows you to enter the Shadowfell in order to transit a vast distance in a short amount of time. Whether that means distances or time is different in the Shadowfell, I don't know which, but I know that's a thing that people in my order have done.
Okay. Okay.
Is that a spell that you can cast on others or just yourself?
It is generally cast on yourself and a group. It's an incredibly powerful spell as well. I don't even have anywhere near the training to be able to cast it myself. That is something that a high priest of a cathedral or a city would be able to do.
Do the participants have to be willing?
As I understand it, yes, but with the divine magic that I practice, most participants need to be willing. That doesn't mean it's the case for everyone who practices different types of divine magic.
Okay.
So, just out of curiosity, are there any compasses in here? Like, not the library per se, but any compasses that I could get in the monastery somewhere, just in case I get like lost?
He shakes his head.
Somewhere.
I don't know of any off the top of my head. No.
Dang it.
We were advised that mist is dangerous and we need a compass.
Let's investigate. What's that done?
The mists.
Or you bring us together.
Yeah.
He nods and says,
Just so he knows.
one part of the Shadowfell is the realms of the mist. They're dangerous in the fact that the mists can take you wherever you don't necessarily want to go. A compass, in that sense, would be an artifact that allows you to transit between the realms in the mist. Not necessarily a place to point your way.
So a compass would be a specific artifact, not necessarily a generic compass.
Exactly. Again, speaking of this symbol that you saw and the fact that it seems that you went somewhere, I would imagine that's more of what you're looking at than a compass. Were you told that in the dream state that you were in?
No.
No.
We were told this by the spooky old merchant man.
By the merchant man who gave us a piece of armor, who told us it would take us somewhere.
I feel that you're caught up in something here.
That the two of us have been there before, and that we might want to get a compass.
The orc is just quietly crying in the background at this point.
And the last time we were there, we didn't come back with our souls.
Yeah.
He nods.
We're not soulless at the moment, so I am highly confused and lost.
If I may, some information that I have here, speaking about this place. The mists are a prison of their own devising for evil and dark creatures who are locked within their realms and unable to escape. It's very possible that your people who have been there before, who are being called back again, the powers that govern that prison often pull people back, is what he, again, motions to the tome. People of my order have worked out in the past. You have a hand up, Colton?
Wardens.
Yes. Sorry, out of character. I know Shayla has been told, or Fiona has been told to leave that item in her backpack unless absolutely necessary. But another opinion would be great by Senior Priest. Other than that, when they are done, Master DM, would you grant me another session with the people I am with the fires?
Yeah, sure. We can do that. We can do that as the final wrap-up for the night. It's getting to the point where we need to wrap up soon. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's what the father tells you. Continuing with that line of questioning.
I just would like to ask the father if he has ever come across an individual named Prospero.
He shakes his head. The name does not ring any specific bells, no.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
We've lost.
Wow.
Was going to ask. Was going to ask her if she was going to be willing if she to have the father look at her armor, but that is.
It does have crazy old, almost worn off stuff on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Guess we'll have to read that.
Okay.
I pull out the dagger and go, "Hey, Father, what do you make of this?"
He motions to take it from you. And he picks it up, kind of looks at it, sets it down carefully, and examines it and goes, "This is very old. The way it's inlaid and carved, this is definitely from the Old Kingdom. This is old. I would argue it is as old as the brooch that you saw." He sighs. "I don't know whether or not it has significance, though. The fact that it is wolves..." He kind of shrugs. "The old tales talk about werewolves a lot. I would imagine that this is more in line with that. But it doesn't have any mystical properties that I can sense right now, and as far as looking up these symbols, I would need more time to research. And I get the feeling you may not have that kind of time."
No. Do you happen to have any old maps of anything like that? I have one. I'd be interested in comparing it.
He thinks for a second and then puts his fingers to his lips and lets out a whistle. And the little dragon comes back and he goes, "Map of the Old Kingdom. Can you fetch it for me?" The dragon kind of, "Oh yeah, sure, totally." Then off the table, flies around a rack. You hear the sounds of things being moved a couple racks down, and then a second later, the dragon comes back, all four claws desperately gripping a manuscript as it's flapping frantically, and it drops it on the table in front of him, and then, like, latches onto a shelf, and, whew, that's heavy.
Can you just go potty?
Alright, and I pull out the map that I got, and I try and lay them both out if there's space on the table for that.
Yeah, so you have to move some of the father's books, but you're able to move them to the side of the table, unroll the first map, which is significantly more detailed than the one that you have. The one that you have marks where the town is, where the gates are, and kind of the path through the valley. The map that the father unrolls is much older. It's worn and frayed at the edges, but it shows that there are 2 additional towns up there. And it shows where you have the pillar stone, it says the castle. And it specifically says Castle Ravenloft. And it names the first town Barovia, and then the following town just past the castle, Valakai, and the one beyond that, Krezix. It also states that there's a monastery in the last town.
Okay. I asked the father if there's something I can use to mark this map, and I try and fill in some of the comparative details.
Yeah. So
to make sure that my map has things.
Yeah, he hands you a piece of charcoal out of his robe, and says, "This should work mostly. Be careful with it, obviously."
Yeah. So comparing the map that he has to the one that I have, I try and fill in some of the details, like names or extra town. So, and after that, I'll be done. That's all I wanted to do.
Yeah, you're able to fill out the extra towns. The other detail that you notice is near the swamps where you have swampland. The swamps doesn't start there. Instead, you have a river flowing through the area where the swamp is, and a place that's just marked as the manor, near where the old man marked where he found the dragon jawbone. Okay.
Well, that's awesome. I'm done with that then.
And I'll ask Fiona if she wants to see if the priest has any input on the piece of armor.
I take out a piece of paper and I draw vaguely the crest of what I can. And I'm like, So we found a part of a crest on this piece of armor of spookiness. And the matron said that it probably should not be, like, just out in the open because it's reeks of blood and pain. So, this is the crest.
He looks down at it and goes, this is a part of a crest, actually.
Part of it. Yeah.
I am going to tell you the same thing I told your friend. I would need more time with it, and even then, you have less information to go on than everyone else. I don't know that I'd be able to find anything.
Yeah, I know. That's yeah.
He kind of shrugs. I'm sorry.
Do you have any books on the Shadowfell?
Thank you, Father. I'm ready to leave whenever.
He motions to a pile next to him and says, "This is as much as I've been able to find so far. You're welcome to peruse."
Thank you. I go sit by the table. I break off half of a candle from my bag and hand it to the lantern dragon.
It proceeds to eat it and goes, "Do you need light? I can light." And it starts to glow brighter again.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that's appreciated. I just start looking through.
Okay.
Research.
All right, so you guys at the monastery, that's where we're going to leave you for the night. And then switching back over to Colton for your final interaction, what is it that you want to do?
So I want to look around at everybody and see, as they are travelers and have been to where we are looking at going, see if there's any, like, scars or physical attributes that may entail what we may be coming across. Are there any, like, claw marks that we may...
Like, are they scarred? Are their wagons scarred? Does it look like stuff has been attacked before? That sort of thing?
Yes.
Obviously you see the signs of wear and tear and fighting, but you also do know, your character would know, that these people travel far and wide. So just because they have those marks doesn't mean they got them in the local area or in the place you're going to. Could be that they ran into danger a few months ago somewhere far to the north, far to the south, or east, or wherever these people have come from.
Even per se on certain people, like the guy who's obviously been up at that area, who came and gave me all that information, he doesn't have any, like, scar across his face, or...
He looks sunken. Like, have you ever seen somebody who hasn't, like, eaten well in, like, a week and a half?
Yeah.
That's what he looks like, despite the fact that he is eating that soup like he has had no trouble eating for days. He does look hollowed out. Roll a perception check, see if you can determine anything else.
Uh, 10.
Sorry. So yeah, he looks normal. He looks, like I said, kind of sallowed, but his skin looks normal. Looks like just a regular halfling. He doesn't even look pale. Nothing else about him truly stands out other than the fact that he looks kind of sunken.
Okay. Kind of all I really wanted to, like, double check on is, like, see if there's any, like, big sign of somebody's been with major claw marks or anything I would recognize within the last 24 hours.
No.
Snaggery that we've experienced.
Yeah, no, not in anything that looks recent. There's definitely some older scarring, like you see places where it looks like something attacked one of the wagons. Things like that, but they're old, they've been repaired as best they can, that sort of thing.
So is there any plan that I plan to stay with this caravan, wake up and go get the others, or am I going to go back with the others and sleep at the monastery where we have rooms, or are they coming back to me? I just feel like there should be a better ending, like either all of us together or a more obvious, like, I'm going to make sure everybody's up and leaving with the caravan, or some sort of obvious leave off.
It's okay to end on a cliffhanger, man. It's okay to end up with us in separate areas.
But there should be a plan about what you guys were planning on doing. Because I don't
I
think
think
we actually discussed that.
My
Oh, we
idea of
did.
a plan was to clear out our stuff from the monastery and then go back down to the wagons.
Okay.
And I said I was going to spend the evening in the library, even
Well-
before we split up.
Evening's already ending, so are you going to spend the night down at the caravan so you can leave in the morning with them?
Oh no, I'm reading until the first sign that dawn is about to crack, and then I'm running.
Okay. That's viable, I guess.
I know it's a choice, but it's the choice I'm making.
Okay.
I guess I have John grabbing the last few of my things I might have in the room up there at the monastery
Okay.
and bringing it to me to.
Assuming you don't
Caravan.
already have it anyway. Like, I don't know what we've been leaving in the monastery, so
Me
I already
either.
have everything anyway.
If
But
you have everything, you have
assuming-
everything.
Yeah, assuming if we have left anything in the rooms at the monastery, you're bringing it back. So that way I still leave with everything I'm supposedly supposed to have.
Yeah.
I don't know if this helps, but I have been running under the assumption that my main backpack has been back at the monastery, whereas I have like my alms box and my like money pouch on me at most times. Like the like basic essentials, but then the backpack is like freaking heavy, and if I'm in town, I don't need to have it if I have a safe place to put it. Kind of
Yeah.
idea.
I was intending to stay the night and just head out like prior to first light.
Yeah.
And it's okay,
Considering the fact,
it's okay if you guys decide to spend the night in different places, and each character had their own idea. The party does not have to be together when we start the next session. That's okay.
which I agree with and I understand. That's again why I brought up the also alternative motion of I'm waking up as everybody's packing up their last belongings at the caravan, and I run over to the monastery to make sure everybody else is up and getting their things together to join the caravan along the next coming of the session.
That can work. If there's nothing else that we need to work out tonight, I think the session can be over, though.